Well, well, well.
Woo!
The whole gang is here.
Yay!
Hello.
Morning, everyone. Morning, Mark.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good morning.
That's right.
Hello, yeah, you can never tell with this group. It could be, any time of day.
Yeah, that's right. Particularly you working at like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning.
Afternoon.
Doesn't actually matter, right? Yeah, you're working reasonable hours at somewhere in the world, pretty much, Bo.
Yeah. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah. Hey, Kate. It's nice and early start today for us down here too.
Matt. Yeah, good morning.
I feel kind of sad. We got like one more left.
One more after this one. So this is the second last, right? Yeah. So kind of reaching the finish, the big finale. I don't know if it is a big finale, but it's kind of all the work's been done at this point.
It's never over, by the way. RBC Sonke Group, it's never over. Lifelong journey.
Oh my God, it is a cult, Bo. It is.
Kool-Aid.
Miss you guys already.
Oh, it's Mr. Krause.
Yeah, I'd show my face, but I'm tearing up a little bit.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. You only save that for the Rome reading rooms.
Actually, it's my feeding window, so I don't want you to see, shoveling it in, you know.
My feeding window.
Intermittent fasting for 435 days.
Oh, wow.
Haven't missed a day. 20
Does
hours.
that mean you're eating
Dedication.
once in that time, or you're a bit more daily consistent?
I'm sorry? What is it, Matthew?
So you eat at regular times through that time?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to set a window every now. When I was playing out more, playing some gigs, then it would be flexible. I could adjust it, you know.
Hey, is Lucas about to start a YouTube channel? Your background is awesome, man. Look at that lighting. Look at that lighting.
Hey,
I feel like,
Lucas,
can you tell me about the new technology that...
Nice, I agree.
How's it going? Yeah, that's Philips Hue lights for you.
Wow.
I'm going to show off.
Do it. You seriously, like, this is like the perfect YouTube setup. Look at that.
Some purples. There we go.
What?
Nice.
Boom.
You can only go to those colors once you hit 1,000 subscribers. Then you can start advancing the color change.
Exactly.
That was so good.
Yeah, it actually is for the YouTube videos I'm currently working on, and the first ones I've put out like last week and the week before, and before I moved, I'm not sure how many of you like followed that on Twitter, but my wife and we moved places. Before we lived in like a tiny 1-bedroom apartment, and and now we have a space where I can have proper background lighting, which I couldn't before. So that's good, and we'll be in more videos, and I'm excited to be here.
Very cool.
It looks great, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very stylish, Lucas. Yeah, I have to put in some effort.
I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna remove the spotlight from you though now. You're gonna make us all look bad, man.
Cheers.
Okay, let's get into it. So 7:04. Let's spend a few minutes now, just a quick check in with Bo and Matt before we go into the breakout rooms for both. So
Cool.
Matt, let's start with you. How's it going this week?
It really feels like kind of standing on a mountaintop, to be honest.
Yeah.
We've reached formally the end of our book, and I've spent a couple days just reviewing the work that's already in our graph, and it's so rich, and there's so much beautiful work, and people have prototyped things that I think turned out to be really exciting experimental models for the future. And I'm trying to let the whole experience just gradually simmer down in my mind, because it's been wonderful and beautiful sort of preparing to just really reflect and think about what we've got so far.
Excellent. So yeah, the graph looks amazing, and both in terms of structure and detail. Some like the Zotero question idea, the Zotero index, very interesting ideas that we'll perhaps talk about more next week when we've got an official kind of reflection and review session. But very impressive.
Great, yeah.
By everyone in there. Bo, over to you. How's it been going this week too?
Hey, so we've been doing coaching sessions this entire week, and I almost feel like once you pass the tunnel of like fleeting notes and literature notes, the amount of variability in regards to what can happen, it's ad infinitum. Like there's no way you can cover all of that. And I just feel like the community of people that are all going through this together is sort of like the thing that's keeping everything together. Because if someone has a question about okay, well, how does relevant notes fit in with permanent notes, or where do I place it? And it's like, if you look at one of the coaching sessions, it's like they have that same question and it's answered in this video over here. So it's like, I don't think this is what I love about all this. It's like one person doesn't have the answer. And it's like, but if you layer everyone's answers and questions together, then it's like becomes this whole picture. And I think there's some like metaphysical, like, that's really profound, and I'm just sitting back and watching it all happen now. I mean, I've let go weeks ago now, and it's just seeing everyone, everything snapping into place. And sometimes when I jump on these coaching sessions, it is almost feeling like I feel like a chiropractor, you know what I mean? Just like snap this one thing, and then all of a sudden it's like bink, and like everything gets aligned. And if you watch these videos, you can see like the looks on their faces, because it's like, oh, and it's so bright and it's beautiful. And but yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about this community. And I was joking about it just when we first started, like, oh well, next week is like the last sort of week that we're together, but I don't think it is. I think this is something where the relationships that have sort of been planted. Why am I keep using plant analogies? I was telling everyone like this plant is dying because it's not getting enough sunlight, and I was like, I hate all these plant analogies, but we've planted the seeds of like this relationship with one another. And I think that's it, and it sort of ties in with today's meeting as well with the Sonke group, because I have two special guests that are pillars in the Rome cult community, and I feel like that's what all of this is about too. It's just learning that we're not alone doing this anymore. And you don't have to bother your loved ones about this Zettelkasten note-taking Sonke is, you know what I mean? Like, you can have other people that are in the trenches with you. And I just want to emphasize that, and also emphasize the real strength of all of this is the Rome cult community. And some people might be offended by the Rome cult name or whatever, but it's just the community of people that have rallied behind this note-taking tool. And I really want to I want to show you several pillars in this community that have day in and day out participated, have added and really cultivated that spirit of selflessness, really, that I learned from. Because these are people that I learned from. And I think that's important. And just continue that sort of goodwill. It's almost like that story of, when you like sometimes you hear those stories about like when people buy they're in Starbucks drive-through and they buy Starbucks for the person behind them. It's kind of like that, and I feel like that's what these last week has been about. It's like, I'm going to buy the coffee for the person behind me, and it just keeps going down, and 300, 400 cars later, it's like, that's that chain reaction.
Well, I wouldn't say it's just been this week, but you've been doing that, and Matt as well, the whole time, right? So that's kind of a big example for us. So yeah, well done. Look, let's get into it. It's 7:10 now, so let's jump straight into the breakout rooms. Hey, I wanted to quickly ask you about Tristan and Readwise and that interview you did this week. So do you want to quickly just give a 1 minute kind of summary just for those about what it was?
So Readwise, so basically it was just a walkthrough with Tristan, and I feel like there's certain people that take feedback and they make use of it. And Tristan and his team over at Readwise is one of those is one of those sort of people, and it was just nice to sort of bring him in and chat with him. And if anything, it revealed even more of his character of like, this is a stand-up guy. And the sync is amazing, and just how he's really pushing the frontiers of really getting it to work with Rome as well. I mean, even the Rome research sync is sort of in beta stages, but he's so willing to help make that grow. I don't know if I covered that well, but yeah.
No, that's good. I'll ask people to check it out. Readwise is a really useful tool. So thanks to Lucas and Kyle as well for coming today. Very appreciative of that. Bo, let's do your breathing exercise, and then we'll jump into the.
Well, can we have Matt do it? I want Matt Brockwell to do it though.
Totally.
All right, guys. I'm gonna lead us in a deep breath in, followed by holding the breath, and then exhaling for 5 and holding the exhale. So let's start. Wherever you are, get ready to take a deep breath, and let's all breathe in together. I'm going to count slowly to 5 on my fingers.
What?
Let's go. Breathe in. Hold that breath. Breathe out. All right, guys. I'm going to ask everyone, please hold off for just a moment on typing text into the chat window, because I'm copy pasting the Zoom link right now. This link is courtesy of Nico. Thanks, Nico. The link that you guys see over there, that is where I want to invite all the Coil folks to click on right now, and we will pick up our discussion from where we left off last week on the Culture Code. So I will see you there in a couple minutes.
Great. See you next week for the recap for everyone in the Coil group too. So
yeah, thank you.
Cool.
And if you're in the Sonke group, you'll notice at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll have a little pop-up. Look for the 4 squares that says breakout rooms, and click on that and just head over to scroll down to the bottom. You might see your name under unassigned, but if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see Sonke's Auditorium. Click on that blue number, and when you hover over it, it'll change to join. And if you click on that and the number keeps moving because there's people joining, numbers keep moving because people are joining, but then you click on that number to join, and I'll see you in the Sonke's Auditorium. Lucas, Sonke's Auditorium as well, okay?
Yep. I'll man the lobby too. So have a good session, everyone. See you next week as well.
Thank you, Matt.
Hey there.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, friends. How's it going?
Greetings.
So many familiar faces. Let's just go and wait for Lucas to join. So what I'm thinking as well is I want to make sure that everyone has a chance, like I have a chance to meet with everyone. Like I just want to get a temperature check. If you look at the reactions at the bottom of the Zoom screen, you can raise your hand if you're still sort of seeking out a coaching session for this coming week. Just raise your hand just so I can get a little temperature check. Perfect. And I'm sure I'll have more people that when they're watching. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I'll definitely open it up again. So let me just get a quick walk. Let me just do a quick walkthrough of the agenda here. I'm going to have Lucas speak about Zotero, doing a walkthrough on that, and then also, Lucas is super knowledgeable on algorithms of thought, which is something that Connor's always talking about as well. So I think, touching upon that, I think would be awesome as well. And then we'll open it up for a Q&A, and then we'll lead into sort of a group discussion. I feel like there's so many people in our group right now that, things have clicked so well. And I feel like I don't want to be the one that has all the answers. I truly believe that, there's lots of people here that could answer these questions much better than I could, and more eloquently as well. And so I want to sort of, lean on the people that have sort of, gotten it quicker than others and are, have that opportunity as well to sort of walk others through it. So after that, group participation, we'll jump into talking with Kyle Stratus. Kyle is an awesome dude. He started up roamlab.org, and he's going to talk about seed packs. And I don't want to take away too much of it, but it's just an amazing way to sort of get what we're doing here into your own personal graphs. And we'll do question and answer after that, and then we'll open up for another group participation, just to talk about somehow finding ways to keep this community going outside of this Roam Book Club. And there's a couple of options like Circle or opening up a Slack channel or Choo Train, or whatever that looks like. But I do want to make sure that everyone here has that sense of accountability until you hit that critical mass, which is going to take anywhere between 3 to 6 months. So just things to think about. And now, is Lucas here? There you are. I'm going to go ahead and pin you to.
All right.
Pin.
Spotlight.
The first screen, I guess. All right. Lucas. Hello.
Cool. Hi.
Can you unmute?
How's it going? Should be unmuted.
Can you guys hear him?
Oh, spotlight not pinned though.
Check. Maybe it's me. Hold on. Yeah, it's probably me. Oh, there we go.
All right. You can hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. This is awesome. I've been browsing the graph, and it's, I don't know, like I don't have the words. It's astonishing, mind-blowing, amazing, fantastic. I don't know. It's otherworldly. What you folks have been up to in the last couple of weeks. I'm at a loss for words. It's so cool. And so yeah, I'm here to talk about Zotero. We can do a little bit of Q&A once I've gone through like the basics. What I want to start with, if that's okay, Bo.
Of course.
You have like, okay, cool.
Well, can I just say one thing?
Sure.
Just to give everyone here a little background history. The reason I love this guy so much is because the templates that everyone's using? Well, before those templates became those templates, there was a little, Connor had an idea of how he wanted to make these templates happen, and it would have ruined everything. And I just love how Lucas was just like, no, that's actually not the best way to do it. And he stood his ground, and guess what? We got the templates like we needed it, and the simplicity of that. So, I mean, I love you for that, for standing up for the community, and also having the sort of genius to go, no, but actually that's not the best way to do it. And I want to commend you for that. And yeah, man, I just love what you do. And I just thought,
thank you.
These people have to meet you if they haven't met you already.
That's so kind. Thank you. Yes, that was a crazy night. Like convincing convincing Connor that his way was not the best way. But yeah, the support I got while that was happening was awesome. You were among the people and some others, and we got it done.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about Zotero. The basic reason why I think it makes sense to consider Zotero for your workflow, right? Like none of what I'm going to tell you is mandatory, right? This is something for a specific use case where it makes sense for you possibly to use that, but it might not, right? So just as a frame of reference for this. I went through the graph, as I said, and I saw that for some of the chapters in the reference notes, and you all referenced different other sources, right? What I have open here, I'm going to share my screen in a second, is Meyer's Hopeless Monster about intelligent design and that sort of thing. I saw that pop up a couple of times. And when you have many of these external references, right? You're not reading just Sönke's book, but you're reading hundreds of books, papers, articles, whatever. And eventually you want to write about what you've been reading, right? Mm-hmm. And depending on your context, you want to give your reader the references so that they can check out the books, right? And you can do that with plain hyperlinks, right? And sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't, right? And in academia, which is my background, we use just plain text references, uppercase or no, upper whatever, 1, 2, 3, or author date format, so that your reader can say, okay, oh, you got that information from Ellsbury and colleagues who reviewed that article, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, when you have many of these, just having the individual links in your own database and collecting them every single time you reference that thing gets tedious, right? And you make mistakes and it's horrible and it's just a complete waste of time. And as Romans, we don't like wasting time. We like thinking, right? That's what we're here to do. And so what Zotero basically is, and the integration between Zotero and Rome Research is going to go to a next level next week. Just a little teaser, there's someone in the community, Alex, who's been working on an integration of the two that will make everything I'm going to show you even easier. And I'm going to have a video, hence the background. But the basic idea is you outsource all that that bookkeeping, right, of what reference is, like when was it published, where was it published, who were the co-authors. You outsource that to Zotero, reference it inside Rome, and then when you export it, magic happens and it looks awesome.
Yeah.
And you have to do nothing else.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to show the very, very basics of this, right? Because I've a couple of videos, more stuff coming up. You can go very detailed, but just the basics. So let me share my screen.
So this is almost like, you know, Readwise is one way to sync with magic, right? Like Tristan was talking about that. I almost feel like Zotero is like the advanced way to sync with magic.
Well, Readwise is kind of the magic sync in.
Yeah.
And Zotero is kind of the magic sync out. Right? Because it lets you reference in a way that others can use it even when they don't have access to your graph, right? If that makes sense.
Got it.
So, okay, here's the article, Myers' Hopeless Monster, right? That popped up a couple of times. Now, I'm going to show you my Zotero database. This is like 2,000 whatever articles that I've referenced. I've not read all of these, but I kind of also use it as my bookmark database. And now what you can see is that you have in the upper area here this weird string, right? It's the last name of the first author, the year, and the first word of the title.
Yes.
Right? And this is called the site key. You can think of it as the block reference for a specific paper and all its metadata, right? It's a unique identifier, but formatted in a way that you can actually read it, and it's not like Rome's X47.
The block reference craziness, yeah.
Exactly. Right. So let's say we want to get Myers' Hopeless Monster into this, right? And all I have to do, right? I have this open in my browser, and I click Save to Zotero, and now it's not working. Of course it isn't. Well, then we'll take a different browser. Screw you, Zotero. Messing with my presentation.
That's nothing. You should have seen week 1 Rome Book Club. Hey guys, we're gonna record the video. Not recorded.
All right, so now we're here in Chrome. Maybe this works. Okay, so basically what you do, you install the Chrome extension, you click the extension, ta-da, it works.
Wow.
And now what happens, I have all the information here in Zotero, right? I have Ellsbury 2004 Meyer, that's the site key. But I also have the name of the author, the title, the website, I have the URL, and that sort of thing. what I currently do to get all that metadata into Rome is I hit a shortcut. I have a video on that.
Yeah,
which I
if
can
you,
share
I'll
later.
link the video to this afterwards.
Exactly. And what I then do is I paste it, and I have like the site key as the page title. I have author, title, everything nicely linked automatically, which is awesome.
And you can nest this anywhere. It could be in a child block, right? So if this
Totally,
so what,
you can,
yeah. So if you had like reference notes hashtag underneath that as a child block, you could have all this information, all this metadata there, right?
So I'm here in my reference notes.
And then a child block underneath that.
Right. So this is the, and like you can nest it here, right?
Yeah.
And this, you can paste this wherever.
Got it.
And so then every time you look for Ellsbury, it's super easy to get this information. What I usually do is I add some topics, right? Intelligent design for this, for example, right? And you know how Rome works, and then I go to the intelligent design page, and tada, Meyer pops up.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is from the web, getting all the information, tada, into Rome.
It's all
now,
automated.
the magic,
yeah,
automated. It's like 3 button clicks.
Yeah.
Super easy. Now, the cool thing is, let's say I want to quote this paragraph, right? This is a paragraph from the article here, right? This is from here, I believe.
Yes.
And now I want to cite this in like a blog post I'm writing, right? And then I want to give the reader the actual reference where they can get this, right? That's the plan. Now, we're pretending I've written this in Rome into a fully formatted thing. And then I'm going to actually copy this and not just fake copy it. And now I have here, this is just a plain markdown document. You can get that through the Rome 42 export, or you just copy paste it like I did, whatever. And then you put after this Ellsbury. How was he spelled? Ellsbury.
Okay, you're finding this as citation key, I guess. Okay.
Exactly.
Someone did ask, how can you configure Zotero for the citation key to appear? Is that a more technical question that you can answer offline,
yes.
Or is this a simple answer?
That's in one of my videos. It's an extension called Better BibTeX that you need to install for Zotero. And that will configure the side key for you, or let you configure the side key, Rob.
Perfect.
Now, okay, I have Ellsbury in here. And now I can export this into a Word document, for example, right? And now what you see here, I have a very nicely formatted, academically perfect citation, right? It's referenced here as Ellsbury with a 1, and then I have the full citation, and it does this for every site key that I mention in the Markdown document, right? So it takes care of all the formatting of the tedious citation stuff for you, and the flow in and out of Rome is mostly automated, and it gets better next week.
How long did it take for you to figure this all out?
Okay.
Right?
10
Forever,
years plus?
Right?
No. So I've been doing some sort of this workflow even before I knew about Rome, and Rome kind of elevated the part in between, right? So previously I did all the note-taking stuff in like individual text documents, Markdown, and then I linked them and hacked my own Sublime, whatever, no one cares. And then I worked this kind of setup into using it with Roam. And that took me, I don't know, a day, but because I knew it already, basically, right? From scratch, it's kind of cumbersome to come up with that yourself.
Yeah. I'm going to leave it up to, I feel like there's a lot of questions that are being asked.
Sure.
I'm going to leave it up to the group just to, I mean, I know there's a lot of academics in this group as well. I'm going to leave it up to them to sort of ask you some questions.
Right. So I see Yina is asking, do we need to always include the middle step of Zettler? Yes and no. The problem is that the formatting from the Ellsbury 2004 Meyer into the nicely formatted thing, this works through a program called Pandoc. And Pandoc is something you install on your own computer, right? You can't use that within Roam itself, right? That's kind of the shame at the moment. And that means you need some tool like Zettler. You can do that on the command line if you want. I often use RStudio because I have R like programming data analysis code in there as well. That does it for me. You can use a bunch of programs. What's important is that it does Pandoc site key translation, basically. And for me, Zettler is kind of the tool that's easiest to set up for people who don't want to fiddle too much with things, right? You download a thing, you install it, it works on Linux, Windows, and Mac, and that's all there is to it. But you can use whatever uses Pandoc, basically, if that helps.
Can you download, a question from Chris Oakley, can you download the text of the article? I'm concerned about losing access to things if the source site goes offline.
Yes. That's a very good point, and something I can demo immediately if you want.
Yeah. And then what style is the citation? Is that APA or MLA?
This is some humanities style. I usually use Harvard Date. Zotero comes with a list of 1,000 citation styles per journal even.
Perfect.
So depending on where you want to send it to, you can just use the .csl file, point it to it, and then it does it for you. So
Perfect.
Whatever the journal wants, you can give them. Let me switch to Zotero here. What actually happens is that here's a snapshot, which is an HTML file downloaded of the website as you saw it. And there are very bad extensions. You should never use them, obviously, that use Sci-Hub, which is a very dangerous website you should never, ever go to. And immediately it also would download, which is again very dangerous, and I'm not advocating it. It would download the PDF of the actual article that might be behind a paywall, right? And so there are extensions like that for Zotero, but I would never advocate using such an extension.
You heard that, everyone, right? That's on recording.
Right. I hope that helps answer that question.
Someone was asking, it would be nice if we could use Zotero as the back-end literature management system for Roam research.
Yes. So what Alex is working on, and
yeah, can you touch upon that too? Like that's the new thing right now, right?
So what happened before is that I had to go to Zotero after saving the thing, hit a shortcut, then go to Roam and do command paste. What Alex is working on is that you can search your Zotero database from within Roam research, right? And that's going to take a second to set up. But I can do that really quickly. So basically what she's working on is you hit a shortcut just like you would for smart blocks, for example, and it pops up a window and you search for Meyer whatever, and it gives you either the citation key, which you can then use, or it lets you with one click import all the data that I just imported into your graph, again, specific to your formatting wishes, right? You can set that up as you want as well. I'm going to.
I think Maggie Delano is the one that sort of told me about the extension, the Zotero to Rome installing and testing the development version. Is that the one that we're talking about, or is this one different?
I'm not sure what Maggie was talking about. There's a bunch of things you can do with Zotero actually. So there's also an extension you can use, maybe that
PDF reader.
Was what exactly that lets you read the PDF, and it takes all the highlighting you did in the PDF and exports it for you into Rome. That also exists. I don't use that too much because I'm so Rome native, if you will, that I just read PDF on the left, Rome open on the right. So I don't even do the highlighting step without Rome, which is why I don't need that extension. But that also works if you want. And so to Brian's question, I don't use the notes feature in Zotero because I take all my notes in Rome. Yuna was asking whether Zotero is primarily for pulling text-based literature or whether you can use it with other media as well. YouTube videos work. I wrote a little thing that lets you quote Reddit posts and threads, which is now hilarious because I can academically cite someone with the brilliant username, the obese house cat. And they have the Psyche 2020, the obese house cat 2020 will, which is awesome. So yes, you can use it for all sorts of sources beyond usual text-based media.
How do people get to learn more a little bit about this? Do you have resources available for people that are interested?
Yes, I think what's easiest is you can check out my Twitter, Cortex Futura.
That's listed on the Daily Notes page.
Awesome. And
your website, I linked to your name as well, cortexfutura.com.
Awesome.
On the Daily Notes page.
I prepped a little thing. If you give me an email address here, I posted that in the chat. I'm going to send you an email with all my videos and writing about Zotero and Rome. And you're obviously also very happy welcome to email me at lucas@cortexfutura.com. And I'm going to answer all your questions to the best of my ability.
Dude, that's awesome.
So
I'm going to go ahead and link that to the shared graph as well right now.
Cool. I hope this was helpful. And again, email me if you have any more questions. I'm very happy to answer anything. And I'm not sure, it's 10 p.m. for me. I'm not going to send out the email with the resources today, my time, but in 8 or 10 hours, you should have it. And then you can get cracking with Zotero and Rome.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say it again. Thank you so much, Lucas, for coming on. And I really feel like you're one of the people, especially that when people have these questions, that they can go to you for trustworthy advice and encouragement.
Anytime.
And there's a lot of, I think as well as I know, there's a lot of potholes on this path, and there's some people that are really good-hearted, kind guides throughout this process, and you're one of them, man. And I just love everything that you do, and I'm excited to have. Really, I look at it like this Rome book club is really just to get more people excited about Rome and the Rome community. And I just feel like let's point to the people that came before us, and you definitely were here before most of us. So thank you again, and thank you for that RBC Zotero email sign up, by the way. That's awesome that you're doing that for us. And I guess if anyone else has any other questions, I do want to sort of open it up for group participation for while we get Kyle ready to show up here in about 30 minutes. So if you have any other questions for Lucas, or I really want to open up for group participation in regards to, I guess, if anyone's dealing with questions with Zettelkasten and where we are now. I look at it like where we are now is sort of, we're coming into this stage where if everything is starting to click for you, it's time to start building your own personal Zettelkasten. And that's going to lead into what Kyle is going to be talking about in regards to, some of the conventions that we're using here, being able to apply that to your personal graph. But I really want to open it up to anyone that's struggling with making sense of, this simple process, making sense of maybe just some more mechanics of it all. And I really want to open it up. I see you, Brother Spirit. Yeah, let's just do that. Let's go ahead and raise your hands. And then I'm gonna allow you to ask the question, but then I'm also gonna allow the group to answer the question as well. So let's go ahead and Brother Spirit, do you have a question?
Thank you, Bo, and thank you, Lucas, for the great introduction to Zotero. I've been aware of Zotero for a while. I kind of know I have to integrate it, but I just haven't got around to it. So this is good motivation. I had a follow-up question, which is, and it's funny because I was just working my way through that article that you pulled up, and I was making highlights and annotations using Hypothesis as I was going through. So I was wondering, is there a way? I mean, can you do highlights and annotations just in Zotero, or can you use Hypothesis plus Zotero into Rome? I mean, I now have Hypothesis going via Readwise into Rome, but I mean, I don't know. It's like I feel like it's getting a bit complicated.
Right. It truly is, because there's, especially depending on what type of source you're using, and I saw the question flow by in chat, whether what you do when it's a PDF where you can't select the text and that sort of thing, because then Hypothesis also doesn't work, and like making annotations and then referencing them is still amazingly in 2021 an unsolved problem. But to your question concretely, Zotero is coming out with its own PDF and mostly PDF reader, right? And so you can read inside Zotero. I use Zotero as the program that manages the metadata of the stuff I read, right? And so I have used Hypothesis as well. I don't use it regularly for weird reasons that don't matter. It's an awesome solution for taking notes on things you read online. And so
what would you do if you were reading a paper? Would you copy it into Rome? Would you?
Right.
So how would you, if you wanted to annotate it? And
what I do is I read, like on my desktop, I have like the paper as a PDF open on the left side and Rome on the right side, and I just do copy paste. And I have a very nicely formatted smart block that I use that formats the quote just like I want, and it's beautiful. And so that's a very fluid workflow for me, right? But I know Rome Hacker, Chris uses Hypothesis a lot to read online, and he has a smart block that pulls from Hypothesis directly into Rome, so it doesn't even go through Readwise. Ping him on Twitter if you want. He's going to share that with you if you want.
Chris is awesome, by the way. Rome Hacker is
Chris.
amazing. Yeah,
we
might have him on next week, but we'll see.
If you do, it's everyone be there. Chris is an awesome guy and brilliant. Like, it's next level. And so basically, Readwise, what you were also saying, Brother Spirit, is Readwise kind of is in many ways, for me as well, the big funnel that takes everything automatically into Rome, right? And so use it for that. That's perfect. And use Zotero as the thing that manages who wrote it, when did they publish it, where did they publish it. That's all I use Zotero for, right? Some people do like all the annotation there. You don't need to do that unless you want to. I purely use it for the metadata stuff. There was a question that I really quickly want to answer about making the case for Zotero for non-academics, which I think is a really, really good point.
CK, yeah, that's a good point.
Really good question. And I think that really depends on whether you feel the need to be able to quote a source with all the identifying information that would be used in academia, right? If it's just a link and you don't care, basically, like where you find it and you have it in Rome, don't bother, right? Like it is a little bit of overhead and you don't have to. But if you feel like, okay, I'm reading so much stuff and I want to kind of build a network of all these sources that and the authors, right? And like if you record for every link you visit, like who the author is, so that you can later go to the author page and say, okay, give me everything that Sönke has written or whoever. That can be a lot of work, right? And Zotero automates that away for you, right? So it's basically, is metadata important for you? Can you see it be important for you? And if yes, Zotero would be my go-to solution because it's so good at getting all the metadata and you don't have to do anything else than like click 3 things. If you don't care about the metadata, and you don't have to, right? Like this is very, very important. You don't have to care about when something was published. If that is irrelevant to you, then don't bother setting up systems that give you that information, right? You don't need that. But if you think it's cool and you want it and you think you can use it, use Zotero. Makes everything so much easier.
Zotero is also like one of those industry standards, right? In the academics. It's like, that's like the Pro Tools of academia, isn't it? In regards to citing and citation.
Zotero itself, yes, there's a bunch of competitor products that I think are vastly inferior. Just like there's an Evernote of Zotero, right? If Zotero is Rome, right? So EndNote or Mendeley, for example, are things that are big competitors on Mac. There's Papers or BibDesk, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Zotero is open source, it's free, it has amazing capabilities, is actively worked on, works together with everything. You can extend it if you want. It's beautiful, it's perfect, you should use it. If you use any citation stuff at all, is my take on it.
Peter Russo has a question.
Peter Russo is a character from House of Cards. That's not me. I wanted to, as far as you know, is there a way to export to LaTeX? Because I don't write in Word anymore.
Yes. So this is okay. Oh, I love you. Okay. So this is.
We just met. Alice offered me dinner. Oh my God.
But seriously, this is exactly the magic of using these side keys, because these side keys come from LaTeX land, right? And what you can simply in Zettler do is you reference your LaTeX template and then you click export to PDF and it just puts it into your LaTeX template, right? Basically, the workflow is, and you can get a text file out of it as well. But my workflow is basically I write in Markdown and I let Pandoc translate the Markdown into text into PDF. Right, and I have LaTeX templates that get populated. You can put metadata in a YAML header at the top, and you can say, okay, in the LaTeX template, put author here, and then I write my author information there, and it populates it. If you want, and there's interest for this, I can record a video on the specific tech flow as well. Most people interested in this, for some reason, come from the humanities, and humanities is sadly still stuck using Microsoft Word. which I feel very sorry for them, but okay. So I'm talking a lot about, hey, you can get all of this into Word, but I use it for LaTeX and PDF exclusively. I never use Word. I demo Word because apparently people want that, but it works perfectly with LaTeX if that's your workflow. Absolutely.
Lucas, can you tell us a little bit about, I mean, I don't want you to be sort of one-dimensional either. I think you offer so much to the community, especially in regards to sort of algorithms of thought. And sure. I almost look at, you know, we actually went through that in one of the daily lessons where we went through the 5 whys, right? Where we had everyone journal about why they wanted a Zettelkasten and why they wanted a Zettelkasten and continually asking that. What interested you? What interested you in sort of this algorithms of thought domain as well?
Yeah, so I learned the term from Connor actually, but I've been by accident more or less exposed to these types of thinking patterns, if you will, for quite a while. And for example, Ray Dalio's principles has a bunch of them that are super interesting. Tim Ferriss has a bunch that none of those people call them algorithms of thought, but that's what they boil down to, right? So Tim Ferriss's fear setting, for example, right? It's basically an algorithm of thought. What's the worst thing that could happen? And then what can I do about that specific thing? Or Jeff Bezos, like making a decision, would my 80-year-old self regret taking that decision, yes or no? And if it would yes, then I'm going to do it, right? And I don't know, it's maybe because my brain is chaotic. I've been looking for ways to not make it chaotic for a decade now. And Rome kind of is the thing that helps me kind of leverage the chaos, right? And my hope is that with implementing algorithms of thought in better and better ways within Rome, it can also be the thing that kind of builds the guide rails for the thinking process and lets me direct it in a way that otherwise I find really, really hard.
I almost feel like when we're abstracting out these fleeting notes, when we're capturing these fleeting notes, that's what we're doing as well. It's sort of, why does this resonate with me? What about this resonates with me? What else does this remind me of? And then the next algorithm of thought is, okay, well, how would I summarize this so if I stumbled upon this later, it would give me a thumbnail of that big wall of text? And then another algorithm of thought would be, okay, what is the author saying in my own words? How can I prove that I understand what the author is saying by stating it in my own words? And then another algorithm of thought would be, which conversation do I want to continue? And then placing the permanent note in the Zettelkasten.
Right.
And then it's also how, and then as you're adding the relevant notes, another algorithm of thought would be, well, how would I want to stumble upon this note later? And it's sort of, that's, I mean, I think Rome is almost built for that because of the ease and frictionless of writing.
Totally. And especially for when you're engaging with a work, one of the algorithms I love is from Adler and Van Doren's How to Read a Book.
Yeah.
And they, I have a blog post about that, earning the right to disagree. Right, which I caught flack on for Twitter for some reason the other day, which I found hilarious, but okay.
It's Twitter.
And it's Twitter, right? And basically, the idea is we all have an emotional reaction to, oh, I don't like this, I don't agree with this, but forcing ourselves to work through, okay, what's the specific layer that I disagree on, right? Is the author missing information? Are they misinterpreting information? And like working through these steps, only if you, they have 3, which now I don't have at the top of my mind.
Sure, but yeah.
Only if you answer these 3 things in the, or one of these 3 things in the affirmative, you can say, okay, I disagree with this point because the author is missing information, misinterpreting, or the analysis is incomplete, or whatever it is, right? And that really close interaction with a text is what Rome is perfect for, and where algorithms of thought kind of make a perfect marriage to what Rome is and what it can be for engaging with material.
Heather's got a great question here. Are algorithms of thought and mental models synonyms? If not, is there a nuanced difference?
Awesome question. I love it. So they're not the same in how I interpret them. A mental model is, in a way, an analogy, right? So this thing is like another thing, right? This situation has a breaking point, right? Which is an analogy. It can break in some way, even if it's just a process in a business. It's an analogy. An algorithm of thought is which questions do I have to answer to arrive at the point where I can disagree, right? It's a thought pattern. It's considering other people's views, right? Which is one of Edward de Bono's algorithms of thought, right? Where you ask yourself very explicitly, okay, I'm going to make this decision of buying a new TV, and what other people, stakeholder analysis, right, is like the business term for this, right? Okay, I have to talk to my wife. I also have to consider whether this brings me closer to my own other goals, right? And kind of that process, that for me is an algorithm of thought, where a mental model is something that lets me compare one thing to the other and learn from the similarities or differences, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I feel like, Heather, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I guess, so the algorithm of thought would be almost like the step below. So the mental model would be higher level. So you'd figure out which context you would apply it to, and then you'd step down and figure out the appropriate algorithm. That's really cool. I really, I like this because we've been back and forth about how all thinking is metaphorical and the dance between the right and the left brain, because so many people can't, it seems like the algorithm of thought is very left brain centric though.
Yeah, well, totally, mostly, yes. And that's one of the discussions I've been having with Lisa Marie and a couple of others from the Rome cult about the thing is like, okay, where do emotions come in? And like, how structured do we really want this thing to be? And where does it start become restricting, right? Because I'm like following this rigid procedure for a fluid situation, for example, right? And I don't have like perfect answers for this, because for me, it's kind of a research field as well still, right? So I'm still trying to figure this out. One thing I just came across the other day is, what's his name? Damasio's somatic whatever hypothesis, which is a thing in psychology. Apparently, I haven't looked in detail into this, is that your body changes, like its galvanic, like skin response, when you have the feeling something is off, even though you haven't intellectualized that, even if it's not like in the top of your consciousness yet. And so there's, I would never suggest like it's a purely like decision making or thinking is a purely intellectual thing where your body and your like the machine that carries your brain also always influences the brain itself, right? And so like making that more explicit is certainly something that in the discussion of algorithms of thought definitely also needs to have a place. If my rambling makes any sense.
Well, I'd like to say that this video is recorded, and you know, it's these conversations are this is what it's about, you know, because I wouldn't be able to have these conversations in my own little sphere and circle, you know, of artists and whatever. And it's I listen, and I probably have to listen to it again, but it's just these sort of discussions really, this is a lot of when I was talking about the community. It's you bring together these bright minds, and yet, you know, we still all have something to offer, you know, our strengths as well. And it's just, oh, I just love this. And it's like, I think you and Lisa need to do a podcast on this, man, because it's
probably, yeah,
you know, it's so solid. And yeah, so we've got another 15 minutes here. Just so you know, we've got Kyle coming in at 1 1:45. Again, I'm just going to keep the questions open. It can be with Lucas. It can be about Zettelkasten, and it can be about, the war on drugs.
Important topic.
I got Alan to laugh. I was just doing it for Alan.
I got a question out there. I got to. Sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was just going to say it ties into both, because Bo's got me doing my personal Zettelkasten now, and I've taken the algorithms of thought course. And what I do is when I'm doing my fleeting notes, one of the last steps I do at the bottom of it is I apply the one, I can't remember the name of the algorithm, but I basically ask, is there another explanation for whatever I'm so excited about? Right? Especially if I agree with it, especially if it tickles my personal cognitive bias, right? Then I say, whoa. Is there any other way to explain this? Am I looking at all the angles? And there was some level, what's my level of credence in this information? Right. And I often find myself then having another conversation in the fleeting note with, maybe I shouldn't just immediately hit retweet on this. So I thought it tied into both questions, like the conversation we just had with Lucas and making your own fleeting notes in your own Zettelkasten.
Awesome stuff. Yes. And I think that's one of the really, really cool things that can happen when you make your thinking process so explicit, right? Because like if you implement it in Rome, the cool thing is you're making your thinking process explicit, and then that kind of forces you to really go through the steps. Like, why am I excited about this? Do I want to retweet this? Okay, maybe like this word actually doesn't always mean what the author might think it means, right? And then you have to go back. And the other cool thing is, because if you do it in Rome, it's written down, it's externalized, and you can go back to it, right? And if you make the decision to buy something, or that you update your belief about the war on drugs or whatever, right? And then a year later, you can go back and see, okay, like, how did I come to that conclusion, right? And where did I veer off of what actually makes sense? Or just the reverse, okay, this was a really good decision. I want to make more decisions like this. Like, what was the process I went through to come to that conclusion? And let me see whether I can apply that in other places as well. So awesome. Absolutely. Yeah.
Lucas, I got a question for you, and maybe for Bo too, and for anyone else that has a thought on this. I've been wondering lately about how much to worry about getting the original text into Rome to work with first, as opposed to reading externally and only bringing in a few highlights here and there. And thinking kind of down the road, is there going to be a compound interest accruing on that as well, for kind of searching around in the graph for information and having access to longer forms of text? Or it seems like why not? But the why not is there are technical challenges with that. Getting text in from PDFs is really annoying, and I'm spending a lot of time on YouTube and in Google trying to figure out how to deal with the formatting issues there. And is that a waste of time, or should I try to get text into Rome as much as possible, or should I just be maybe grabbing a few lines here and there and highlighting them or bringing them in, and as long as I have a reference? Or what's your take on that?
So my take is that I copy the paragraph where the highlight is in, right? So even if I only want like one sentence, I copy the whole paragraph so that I have context to go back to, right? And so that for me is the balance between, okay, actually I want the whole PDF in my graph so I can go back and like really see it. But as you have observed, just as I have, that's a pain in the butt, right? And it's just very often, most of the time, just not worth it, right? But for me, like, okay, I get the paragraph, and then I can search around that later down the road. That's kind of the balance that I found that kind of works. What's your take?
I'm the same way. I just avoid adding too many blocks to the graph at the moment, because we haven't switched over to Datomic as a database. So the slowdowns is happening because of UI, and it's the more blocks that you have in your Rome graph, the slower it becomes. And I don't want slowdowns when I'm doing my best to connect thoughts. And so at the moment, I'm the same way. Get the paragraph that has the highlight or the captured fleeting note that goes in there, and then just basically make a link to the actual source material.
Right.
Thanks.
Did that help? Okay, cool.
Yeah. One last thing I'll follow up on. I started thinking more about this just because of how cool it is to work with the Zonka text in Rome. You can really dive into that text when it's just right next to you. You can reference a block, you can follow up on the citations and pull that in. And you just thought like, wow, it would be cool to actually read in Rome. That would kind of be the ideal world. And so now I'm thinking, do I need to work on that? Do I need to solve all those technical issues or no? But it sounds like maybe it's a little more work than it's worth.
Yeah, most of the time, I think it's a little bit more work than it's worth. I do want to point out, though, that there is a little bit of it's a very nascent subculture of people like publishing R books, right? So if you search Rome Cult and R uppercase book, then in comparison to an ebook, right? So a couple of people have published bookish things as full graphs that you can download as a JSON file and then import, and then you have the actual source material just as the author wrote it inside Rome. So maybe we can go a bit more in that direction. I think who was one of the Richard Meadows? What's it?
Ergodicity? No, that was the other guy.
That was the other guy.
That was
Luca Delano.
Luca Delano was Ergodicity, I think, but Richard Meadows had another one too.
Jesus, let me open.
One
That's
about
why I have
project management.
Give me 1 second.
Optionality.
Optionality. Thank you. That's a book, and I think you can get Optionality as a R book on Gumroad or something if you want to experiment with that. And there's also Fractal Inquiry is a book that one of Stian's former colleagues, also in the Rome Cult, name escapes me, has written. You can also get on Gumroad for like $4 or something. So there's a bunch of people who are kind of experimenting with that. Lisa Marie Cabrelli is also working. And yes, Fractal Inquiry is amazing. Lisa Marie is working on that for her PhD. Kind of, she wrote a book that you can, which is a fiction book that you can now explore as a Rome graph and kind of use the Rome graph for like fan fiction, like it's kind of world building. It's amazing. So there's cool stuff happening in that regard. For the actual, like how much of actual PDFs do I try to get into Rome, the paragraphs that are important. I experimented with trying to copy whole ebooks into the graph. And the graph slowdown wasn't that much of a problem. I just didn't find it that worth it, given the benefit versus the actual work it was. So
and if I can add on that, I was actually I brought over, so Matt McKinley brought over the book. He had to go through and add paragraph by paragraph by paragraph by paragraph, and then I had to go back in there and edit it all out. And it's going to take you like 2 hours to put it all in, make sure that they're separated by blocks, and then if you do fuzzy search as well, sometimes reference blocks, you get this block of text that messes up if you're doing a fuzzy search for a word. So I mean, there's a lot of things to consider when you do bring in these big blocks of text.
For sure.
So we've got another 5 minutes. Anyone else has a question for Lucas? Or I think you're awesome, by the way. I mean, been stellar, and yeah, man, I'm just blown away.
Thank you. No, this is awesome. I wish there was another book club at a time that was more amenable to my work schedule than Sunday night at 10 p.m. Going on 11. But I'll make an effort to make it more to these sessions because it's amazing. I'm having so much fun.
Yeah, excellent. If anyone doesn't have any other questions, I guess we'll just give Lucas another round of applause. Oh, no, I see two. I see two. Sorry. I got Peter and I've got CK.
Hey, good question, Lucas and both of you. The book club, the Rome Book Club, has been a collective intelligence type of effort. So I was curious to know if you have seen other effective use of Rome plus this collective intelligence as a general comment. Because in my mind, this is super novel and cutting edge, right? How can we actually use the collective intelligence, wisdom of the crowd to find out new things? So there's a ripple effect going forward. So I'm curious to know if you have any thoughts about those.
For sure. This is one of the most amazing things for me about this whole adventure. I personally, have not as much experience as I would like. I know from a couple of people in the Rome cult that do this in a much more advanced way. I think Joel Chan, who's a professor in the US working on, I think, human-computer interaction, actually uses Rome in his lab to drive knowledge synthesis of the field, which I find mind-blowingly cool because I think that can be incredible for science. I think for science itself, Rome still has a couple of rough edges that I would like to smooth out before I think it's really going to take off. But there's a bunch of things I think what Brandon Toner is trying to do with the Rome Collective is going into that direction. This obviously, as you said, and so yeah, this is going to be a huge part of at least the next decade, like how Rome is going to influence collective intelligence and thinking critically about how things work. So full on the same page as you are on that.
Sorry, I had to pee. Peter, you got the last question.
So this is a book club, so I assume most people like reading here. What are two cliche question, 2 books that you think everyone should read?
What Technology Wants by David Kelly, and The Invention of Science by David Wootton. What Technology Wants is 10 years old now, I think. Kevin Kelly, I think many people might know, was, I think, founder of Wired magazine and is super polymath type guy, has been on Tim Ferriss' show a couple of times. And The Invention of Science by David Wootton is, I think Tyler Cowen has this concept of quake books, right? Like books that shake your worldview. And in The Invention of Science, David Wootton, who is a professor of history, collects like 40 years of research into how science came to be what it is now. And that's one of the books where I am still not completely through the book, because every page I'm like marking up and like trying to read the footnotes, because it's just, and it's a whole research life condensed into like, I don't know, 400 pages or something. It's mind-blowing. I actually talked about this with Matt, of me doing a book club on the invention of science.
Yes, please.
At some point. Once I'm through with a PhD, once the thesis is submitted, so it's going to be like August or something, the earliest. But I would love to do that because it's one of the coolest books. And again, also What Technology Wants. Take those 2 and your mind will never be the same again.
Oh, thank you. I'm also submitting in August, so good luck.
To you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas, again. And I guess I'm gonna just unmute yourself. I'm just gonna unmute everyone, or how do you unmute everyone? Just let's give them a round of applause. I mean, that's thanks for
Thank you,
coming
Lucas.
in.
That was great.
We know that it's late at night.
Thank you, everyone.
And,
this was awesome. This was so much fun. Thank you.
And thank you for that email list as well. Again, it's on the daily notes page. If you want to sign up with the email, Lucas will send out some more information in regards to the integrations. Thank you again, man. Really
awesome.
Cool. And
Bye-bye.
now I'd like to introduce Kyle Stratus. Kyle, are you here?
I am here.
There we go. Hey. Doot, 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 doot. So Kyle is the man. Again, another staple and pillar in the community. And what I love about Kyle, not just his music preferences, because it's heavy, but also the fact that you're always willing to help, and you're broad in your helping abilities as well, because it's not just the technical questions that you answer in the Roam community. It's also like, you know, fun questions and CSS questions, like what the whole gamut, you know. And so one of the things that really sparked my interest, especially with this Roam book club, is this ability to take what we've learned in this shared graph and to be able to apply this to our personal graphs. And I know that you've sort of developed this way of doing that I wanted to sort of show everyone today as well. So let's give Kyle a round of applause, and let's let him just sort of talk us through seed packs.
All right. Thank you, Bo. Thanks for everyone for letting me drop in on the book club. It's been really cool seeing this grow kind of from the outside. I'm very bad with commitment in general. Just don't tell my wife that. So I haven't been able to be a deep participant, but I remember when like the first one started and all the things that everyone was learning from that, and to see what it's grown into has been incredible. Just to see and cheer you guys on. Just know like the wider community sees this, and it's incredible. Everyone seems to love it, and they should. It's cool. It's amazing work you guys are doing. So yeah, I was going to talk today about Roam exports and seed packs. And so seed packs are basically just an export. So this is a concept I kind of added in as a part of Roam Lab, which is an open framework I'm working on for multiplayer Roam, especially for small learning communities. So Bo, I think, has mastered, and his helpers have kind of mastered the huge sprawling communities. I didn't even think it could be done, but it's being done. But
I think it's going to transform education. I think this is the future of education, and we're the forefront. Yeah.
And I think it's something that can make it a lot more accessible than it is right now, which is like paramount. And yeah, so, and part of that too, and part of Roam Lab, and part of what I think will help intergraph communication a lot is this concept of seed packs. Mm-hmm. And so basically seed packs just like a glorified Roam JSON export. But for a seed pack, I think that's a more high quality, something that's geared more towards consumption, knowledge sharing, sharing templates. So if someone has like a bunch of CSS they want to share together, one way of sharing it would be through a JSON export, or just like a page structure. And actually I use that for a lot of my structures that I share. I use just a JSON export and show how to increase or how to import them. And so these are also high quality. It's not like a personal backup, which is just some pages and, you know, no cleanup, or, you know, there's a bunch of fleeting notes or something like that. A seed pack really allows a talented Roman to package their knowledge into their knowledge of structures, or just their knowledge into one or a couple files that can be imported into someone's graph for use. Like you can think of it as a Roam textbook that is densely linked, and you can pull in, if you're doing a learning community around, let's say, physics, someone has a graph that's all about quantum physics, it's densely linked, there are rabbit holes you can go down. They could export all of that in a single JSON file for you to import into your learning community's graph, and have your students or your members just kind of dive right into it. And so the next section is like, why would you want one? You might not. That's okay. You don't necessarily need you don't necessarily need to use these, but I think they're a really good and useful feature for trying out what other people are doing and getting other people's knowledge quickly into your own graph. If you want to share your structures, your CSS or templates that you use with other people, if you're running a learning community and want to seed it with pre-existing knowledge, which hence the name seed pack, or if you want to share like a subgraph between different groups. So if you have a couple different groups working on similar projects in different graphs, you could simply share an export periodically so you can kind of sync up. So that's the long and short of what it is and what you can do with it. And I wanted to do kind of a really quick demo to show how you could export pages from the shared graph that you guys are all working on right now and import it into your own graph. It's really pretty simple. If you get lost somewhere, jump in and let me know if I'm going too fast or anything like that. But what we'll do today is I'll share my screen in a second and we'll look at the templates page and we'll export that page. And then I'll just bring that into my own page or my own graph and we'll step through it kind of together.
I did create it's not syncing because there's 79 remote changes that are pending, but I did create a page called Seed Pack. But I'm not sure if it's going to be populated because it hasn't synced yet. But if not, you can just take it from the templates page.
Okay, let's see if I can see Seed Pack. Yeah, I'm not seeing it yet.
Yeah, so it just hasn't synced yet. So it's probably not going to work. You can just take it from the templates page. I know that I did Rome templates page. I know there's plenty in there. Or
yep, I've got it already up.
Templates, I think. Yeah, there you go.
Ready to go.
Cool.
You're
sharing.
Okay. It went away. I wasn't sure which browser I have. Not only do I have a billion tabs, I have like 4 windows open as well. Okay, so when we're on the page we want to export, all we have to do is, so the one caveat is that this will only export the one page that you're on. The only options Roam gives you right now is to either export the full graph or to export individual pages. So if you're trying to set up something for export that takes multiple pages and is densely linked, it's best to do this on an empty graph that just has that information on it. And then what you could do is use that JSON to pull it back into another graph later if you want to. So all you do is go to the Share Export More button, export, select JSON. So of the export methods, you have Markdown, JSON, and if you are, I think if you own the graph, you can also do the EDN. Markdown isn't complete, and you'll also get, if you do a large export, you'll get a ton of files that you don't necessarily want. JSON, whether you export your entire graph or just a single page, it's all in one file, which is a lot easier for distribution and just not having stuff everywhere. Cool. So all you'll do is export it. I'll just save it to my
the share screen shows you just format zip archive. I guess it's not showing the pop-up, but
oh, okay. Yeah. There's a pop-up here of where to save it. Just select where you want to save it. I'm saving it to my downloads folder and calling it Seed Pack. So that way I'll easily find it. And all I'll do is, you're not going to see this in the Finder because I'm just sharing the browser. I'm extracting it. So I'm opening it. It's a zip file. So once you extract it, it'll be in its own folder, and it will have a JSON file within that. And so now I'm going to navigate over to my personal graph. That's my overview. So I'm going to just do.
I made his graph. I made it to Kyle's graph.
Yeah, he's in here quite a bit. So I just made this like quick page to jump into. And all you have to do is import files, choose files, and this will bring up again, I'm not sure about what's being shared, but it'll have a dialog for you to select your files. So I'm just navigating to it.
Yeah, it's not showing anything, but yeah, there's a pop-up that'll show you to find the file is basically, yeah.
Yeah, if you've ever uploaded anything to any site ever you be familiar with it.
Thank you, Kyle.
And so you'll get this nice little screen that you can double check. So what's cool about this is you can select multiple files. So if you are exporting multiple individual pages, you can import a bunch of them. And then you can select whether you want to actually import it. It'll tell you the file name, what the page name will be. And then this is the content of the actual file. And it's kind of a bunch of gobbledygook. This has to do with the underlying structure of how Roam presents data. So this is less necessary, but if you see like a line, like string will have the content of a block. And so if you see something you recognize, like that's another clue that it's importing the right thing. And you just hit import.
And this is just utilizing Roam's functionality. It's not like you have to add anything or do anything extra, correct?
Exactly. This is all native to Roam. I'm a big fan of doing as much as I can with native Roam as possible. And so now when I look for admin templates, it shows up here.
Wow.
And mine looks a little different because I'm using fancy CSS from Abe Prasanna. I recommend his CSS, but it's all this content's the same. It just looks like, it's just changed a little bit by my CSS, but everything's here. So now you have, sometimes there'll be things you'll have to clean up, like this current time thing may need to change, but
no, we have that intentionally. We have that intentionally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There
so
you
that
go.
way they just hit enter without having to like do the / command.
Awesome. Yeah. And so that's really all it is. So what makes the seed pack special or a separate thing, it's really the process of intentionally creating some kind of knowledge within Roam that is made for sharing with others in a format that is kind of understood and understandable by people of, any sort of level of knowledge with Roam. As long as you can import a file or a couple files, you can add knowledge already prepackaged and ready to go for you. In the future, I hope we can build maybe a marketplace or some marketplaces where people can really put a lot of work into creating their Roam textbooks and sharing their knowledge with others and put it up for sale or for free or however they want to do it so that they can get that out there and people can start seeding their own graphs with knowledge that would have taken them a long time to gain and put in there. And then they can start, what's really cool is then you start networking it with your own knowledge and you've just upgraded your brain basically.
It's like installing learning Kung Fu, like in the Matrix. It's like, oh, okay, well, let me just download Kung Fu. Let me download Jiu-Jitsu. And then it's like, boom.
100%. And that's what's really cool about it. It's that like modular Matrix-like sort of thing. And, as a software engineer, you say modular and I'm there. So
awesome. So what are the limitations at the moment with seed packing?
Yeah, so so there are a few limitations. If you're going, like I said before, if you're creating a seed pack and it's going to be a lot of pages, you're going to have to export each page one by one, unless you do it in a fresh graph and you export the entire graph as a JSON. So that can be a difficulty or that can be a blocker for a lot of people. Hopefully, we get a better way of exporting that can kind of dig down into what is linked. So if you do a single page export, maybe you can follow all the links to like a certain specified depth or something. So you get something fuller in one file without having to go to each page individually, or making it in a new graph. Yeah. There are some very minor things that are left out of the JSON that if you're distributing it to other people, it won't matter. There are things, it's just some metadata things, the transaction history. So the history of a block, all the changes that have happened to it. If you're giving like a textbook to someone, they don't really need that. But if you were to back up your database, you would want that. So that's what the EDN backup offers you. The JSON backup does not have that, but it has content-wise pretty much everything you need. The Markdown export doesn't. It has even less than the JSON does. Like some linkages aren't maintained and things like that. So generally when backing up, if you want to do a full backup, use the EDN. on your personal graph. If you want to just get bits of your graph out there, a subgraph, some knowledge, and especially if you want to distribute it, go with the JSON export. I haven't used the Markdown export for anything since, I don't know, probably a month or two after I really got started with it. So highly recommend the JSON export.
So just to reiterate, so if you wanna sort of back up your entire graph, you use the EDN or the EDN file, and if you want to restore that, it'll actually clear your entire graph. So that's the big thing. It's the EDN files are great because it backs up everything, but in order to sort of reuse it, you have to restore your entire graph, but it'll keep everything pretty much basically exactly where it was. And then with JSON file, that's more like, say you have a permanent notes page that you want to take over and add to another shared graph or another graph, you could just do the JSON export and then import the JSON file, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed a few questions in the chat. So do we want to open up the floor? You want me to start taking those? Okay.
Yeah, let's do a Q&A.
All right. So Bo, do you want to moderate them or you want me to just pick out of the chat?
I'll let you do it. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
I'm sort of, yeah. I'm having fun.
So the first one from Bart about what a seed pack is. Are we calling export import seed packing? Yeah. So seed pack just kind of covers that like larger process of intentionally creating something for knowledge distribution, packing it all together in order to seed another graph with knowledge. So the way you do that is by export import. Seed pack is just kind of a name for what comes out of that. I would say like if I'm just like making an export for my own personal use, that's probably not really a seed pack per se, but if I'm sitting down and creating something akin to a textbook or a crash course in Python programming and it's densely linked and it's generated for distribution and for seeding a knowledge graph, then it would probably fall under that umbrella as seed pack. It's really just like a name that I put in within the whole process to the whole Roam Lab framework to kind of very succinctly describe the export import process.
You know, I've got a question actually, as you're talking about this. Like,
yeah, sure.
I think Brian was talking about like, you know, importing a whole book. I mean, a seed pack could also be like an R book, couldn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually another great use of them that I was like really kind of floored by, especially back when people were starting out with Roam Nerd. And what that was doing was using natural language processing, which is a type of AI for bringing in literature. So like say War and Peace, and then figuring out every sort of entity in there. So like every character, every mostly characters, places, things like that, making them into links and then making it a JSON file that you can import. Or actually, I think it would just translate the text that you could bring into Roam, copy and paste into Roam. And then all of a sudden you have a book in there, you have the content, and you can actually explore the relationships between the characters and things like that. And it did this all automated and with like decent accuracy, not the best because these techniques are all over the place. And they're turning that into now a like global internet search, think Google, but with networked knowledge. So the graph version of Google, if you will, which is pretty cool.
You know, before you go to the next question, can I just ask you a question? Just because, you know, we're a crazy group of people, you know, this whole community, right? And I'm sure, yeah, I see you, Samantha, you know, like thumbs up, because this is awesome. It's like we've really put together the world. And if you think about it, I think this is the birth of something huge. And I think you've met enough people, you've jumped on enough Zoom calls with enough people. What do you think this all is? What is this Roam cult? What is this community?
I mean, it's a community in like the best form. It reminds me, and it makes me think of kind of the glory days of some of the earliest open source software movements where you had, and even before open source, like when the personal computer was first becoming a thing, we had computing clubs of people that would lug this, like in the 80s, this is before my time, but like I love computing history. And people would like lug in their computers. They would share the programs they wrote on like floppy disk, or even before that, like punch cards, things like that. They would it was a very free exchange of ideas that led to this entire industry that has changed so many people's lives, mostly for the better. And so it feels a lot like the feeling I get when I read about that, and when I learned about a lot of these communities, that we have a lot of really bright people from so many different areas. And I think that diversity is key. It's not all tech people. It's not all knowledge workers. It's not, all academics. We're all over the place. I've met people from every single walk of life. And I think that becomes our strength. And as we see by practical use the importance of networking information, we realize the importance of networking as people, and not networking in like the boring business sense, like, hi, I need a job, and I scratch my back, I scratch your back. But it's really a community where, we're excited about something that has helped us and we want to share that with others. And that leads to, doing that thing where, like you said in my intro, we're just freely sharing what we learned. And I think that's really great. There's a lot of openness to just sharing knowledge and sharing information, things we learned, because Roam is really more of a platform than it is a note-taking tool or anything like that. You can build a lot of cool stuff on it, and algorithms of thought, some of the programming stuff that people like, the Roam.js extensions, people are hacking at this in every sort of way, not just like the computer hacker sense, but coming up with creative solutions to a pretty diverse set of problems, and just sharing it freely, which is really exciting. It's really great to be a part of it.
And you mentioned Abe as well. And it's just like, I know of so many people in this community. I mean, we're part of another thing too. And it's just like, there's so many people in this community that are doing so much work behind the scenes that no one even sees, and they're not asking for anything. They don't, you know what I mean? They're not doing it because of any sort of recognition. They're just doing it because they love this tool. And I don't want to say too much about it, but you can agree with me that there's a lot of people behind the scenes, behind the veneer of Roam Cult. There's a lot of people that are really sort of pushing the boundaries of what's possible with this note-taking tool.
Yep, 100%. And I think we're just going to see more and more of it as more people get into it, and you get the network effect, that we're going to see so many different workflows that are organized between how you think already, how you want to think, what subjects you're really interested in. There's so many different ways to expand and grow this beyond what I think even the Roam team understands. And as more people get into it, and if we maintain this culture of sharing and openness, it's going to be incredible.
Kyle, they don't know. They have no idea. They have no idea what's brewing right now.
Nope.
And they have no idea what is brewing. And it's just, it's so good. And I'll open up for another 5 minutes here for questions. I do want to go into sort of a little bit of group participation before the meeting's end. Is there anyone else that sort of wants to chime in, ask any questions for Kyle about the community, about Seed Packs, also his work with Roam Lab?
I'm happy to talk about just about anything.
Yeah, redefining the meaning of cult.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, Kyle. Appreciate you doing this. I did put I'll just repeat a question that got lost in the chat. I was wondering if you had any recommendations for bringing in CSS or JavaScript, any particular workflow that you would say?
Yeah. So if you're looking at like an individual CSS theme, for instance, a really easy way to do that, that a lot of people offer. So a lot of these are hosted on GitHub. And so I don't think there might be a few central depots that, Bo, you may know of, you may have the links to, that organize all these, but mostly people share them in like the Roam Slack or somewhere else. But generally they're on GitHub, and all you have to do is copy and paste like 1 or 2 lines of code. They'll give you the instructions into your Roam/CSS, and then you activate it, and that's pretty much all you have to do. Actually, I don't think you even have to activate it for CSS. So the workflow is just copying and pasting, and it's not the full CSS. So what it is there's an import line with CSS that will link to like the repo where the code is maintained, and it will automatically bring in updates in case something changes. The Roam team decides to change their CSS, which they do from time to time. If the developer maintains that code, you have like that automatic link to the most updated version.
And I'll be updating all the CSS in the shared graph to that sort of import link, because I learned that literally 2 days ago that that's how you're supposed to do it, not just copy paste code. So basically, it'll always stay updated because it'll refer back to the GitHub. And so I will change the shared CSS code, and maybe I'll probably make a seed pack out of it with just like make a quick Zettelkasten template, and then also the CSS with the bullet points and all the colorings.
And
go ahead. I have grabbed things from GitHub. I'm familiar with that routine. I guess I was thinking more in terms of the shared graph with the book club, but Bo just clarified that. So so it's going to be the same mechanism, huh? With GitHub? With GitHub, rather than doing like a seed pack from the page, from the shared graph to your...
What I meant was that the seed pack would just basically, you just download this, it's already packaged, you just click one button and you just upload it. But you can do the same, you can just copy paste it as well. I mean, it's whatever, yeah.
The other thing too is that, so on your CSS page, you can actually have multiple CSS. So on mine, I have like, actually I can reshare real quick and I can show.
Yeah, can you show us that? Yeah, because
definitely.
This is gonna be cool.
So if I can, I thought I had it in my sidebar, but of course I do not. What's going on here? Okay, so this is what my Rome CSS looks like, but what I actually have here is a bunch of CSS things. They're all filtered out. So I'm gonna unfilter everything, and my Rome's gonna look very different a few different times as I unfilter it.
This is what I love. It's so customizable, and it's simple.
Yeah. So these are all a bunch of different themes that I have, and you're seeing right now, I don't even know which theme this is, probably Better Rome Research or Grizzly. But what you're seeing here are all of the different themes. And what Rome does is it will pick just one of them and apply it. So I could make a seed pack of this page. I could make an export of this page, and you'll have access to all of these different themes that I have. So Better Rome Research, Grizzly, Rome Nord, Dark Age, Dracula, Night Owl. And what you can do then, this is, and I think this might be changing soon. I think Connor mentioned something about it, but this is a pretty easy thing to do. What you can do, since they're all nested under page links, all you do is filter out the ones you don't want. So shift click, I don't want Rome Nord. I don't want Dark Age. I don't want Dracula. I don't want Better Rome Research. I don't want Grizzly. So I'm using Night Owl now. But I could package all of this up in a seed pack, and then you can decide which of those you want to use. And again, this is what that import line looks like. So it links to Abe's Git file, his Git repo with the CSS file directly. So I get the updates right away.
Yeah.
And like I said, I could package this up, export it as a JSON and share it. And then you could go and filter out whichever ones you don't want to use, and you still have them, so you can switch between them pretty easily. Right. But the filters let you do that.
And I'll update our CSS to have the import URL. That way everyone's up to date. Because Rome's always changing their CSS parameters. So that way the import is going to be so much easier without having to copy paste all the time. I'll have that done by next Sunday.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Kyle, can you say, I was just taking a look at your website with Rome Lab.
Mm-hmm.
I was only able to just browse the homepage. I don't know if you have much more there, but what's the idea with the learning community? You just, I know there's been talk with this group about like finding a way to transition from the book club into some kind of centralized place to continue to connect. And is that the idea, where people just come together, build something spontaneously to learn about Rome, or can you speak more to what you're doing over there?
Sure. Yeah. Rome, the idea with Rome Lab is, it's something I've been sitting on since I think like last June or so, and trying to figure out what my actual thoughts are on it and how I can share it. And so what it really is a framework or a guide to creating a community, not necessarily just a learning community. So there are a few different, and I can actually, give me 1 second, I will share the introductory article as well that I wrote that kind of talks about this a little bit more in depth, and I'm sharing it in the chat now. But basically what it is a framework or a guide that you can use to help very quickly create a community based around Rome. So whether it's a learning community or like a hacker lab kind of community where people work on projects that have some kind of output, whether it's, you're actually building physical items, or you're building software, or say you're doing what Rome Book Club is doing. You're going through a book and you're creating a knowledge graph together. This is kind of a framework to be able to do that rapidly for people who don't necessarily have a ton of experience in Rome. So what it is it's kind of a listing of kind of the things you need. So things like Rome, obviously, a chat, so like Discord or something like that, where people can kind of very low friction, just talk and socialize, because that's a really important component of any community, I think. And also, a lot of this is my opinion and my experience from working in different size multiplayer graphs and things that I've learned. So it may not jibe with everybody, but it's basically a list of suggestions to very rapidly create and launch your own community, and some guidelines of how to do that effectively so that people are, say, speaking the same language like you guys do with Rome Book Club. Like everyone's kind of sharing things in the same way, because that makes the communication between pages and blocks and people a lot more effective. And so what I'm working on with this is the next step is going to be kind of a quick start guide for facilitators who understand Rome already and want to kind of hop right in and start experimenting with it and seeing how it works, where it doesn't work, and we can start iterating on it. Eventually, I'd like to have like a full guide that has, like, think of it. So if any of you have played tabletop role-playing games, I really liken it to the source book for, like, say, Dungeons and Dragons or GURPS or any of those others that give you just that framework or that set of rules, and then you get to build. The real magic comes from the facilitator and the community working together to actually implement it and build it in their own way. So it's very much a loose framework that you can drape on your own creation. And so I'm hoping to get at least somewhat close to what kind of the greats of the tabletop game have done, but for communities.
Sounds like a seed pack almost. I'm just
yeah, exactly.
Listen, Kyle, you've been awesome. I love what you do from the Rome cult, and
thank you.
What you do behind the scenes. I just think, I wanted to highlight that more than anything, and just really just put the spotlight on the people that are too humble. You know what I mean? Like, too humble to say it, but like the force behind you and the action. You know what it is? It's the actions that precede anything, and your actions speak louder than anything you could ever say. And it's just, thank you for everything you do. And I just wanted to sort of bring you on and get people in this community to get to know you and Lucas as well, and all the rest of the friendly, nice Kool-Aid drinking Rome cult.
Well, thanks for having me, and thank you for your role also in being kind of the extrovert for all of us that can't do it. So I appreciate
it's
that.
All Chris's fault, by the way. It's all Rome Hacker's fault. Okay, he's the one that gently nudged me down the hill, and this snowball effect happened. So it always goes back to Chris. And if you're watching, Chris, that's for you. So yeah, if we can just unmute, give Kyle another round of applause, everyone.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah,
thank you, everyone.
And if you want to stick around, I kind of want to open up these last sort of minutes here just to sort of, let's circle back and, looking at what Lucas was talking about, what Kyle was talking about. I see so many parallels and so many similarities. And now I just want to open it up to sort of, let's allow the community to ask any sort of questions in regards to, okay, the work that we're doing. Really, we're at week 5 now, and we really need to be at that place where, I'm not saying everyone, because I know some people are still catching up, and I don't want to make anyone feel like they're being rushed, but you're going to get to that point now where you're ready to start your own personal Zettelkasten in your own graph. And I know there's still a couple of questions out there in regards to some of the concepts and mechanics. And I mean, I'm looking at the people here, and I know that the people here can answer those questions. So what I'd like to do now is just open it up for people that have specific questions with the mechanics of fleeting notes, literature notes, permanent notes, relevant notes, and getting to start build, or maybe even writing your first permanent note in your own graph. You can raise your hand, you can write it in chat, but I just wanted to open that up.
I was just going to say, Bo, if to the people that haven't had one-on-one sessions yet, it's time consuming to go through the sessions that have already been recorded, but it's really rewarding. I know that I had a session with Bo last night, and he recommended, for my needs, one in particular, and sure enough, it answered all of the questions that I had, prior to the session. So yeah, that's valuable to have those up and available. You'll learn a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's just too many variables. It's impossible to sort of cover all that. But again, as a community, I feel like all those nuances can be touched upon. So by the way, I do want to mention, so on the shared graph, on the left sidebar, I did add coaching sessions right underneath lesson library. I'll add all the videos over there. I will set up more coaching sessions for this week. If you've already had a coaching session, if you can wait maybe a day before you check back, I do really want to open it up to people that haven't had a session yet. And it doesn't matter where you are in the process either, because I know there's people catching up. So, you could be, already 2 permanent notes in your personal graph, or you could just be starting with fleeting notes. Whatever it is, it's like, I want to meet with you. I want to see how you're tracking. And yeah. And so please, I'll open that up. So I'll have the signups for coaching sessions, 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow. I'll have a calendar link. And Zengda, I added your email, so just give it a moment here. But again, I'll add the link tomorrow, same time as RBC Book Club time, and then I'll add the Calendly link there. And we do have one more Rome Reading Room session tomorrow as well at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then also on the left sidebar, this is a little house cleaning. On the sidebar, I did add last pieces. This is for people that are already comfortable and they're already ready to start building their own Zettelkasten. And it's just going to be a place for community resources. And also, actually, you know what? I kind of wanted to talk about this too, just because I feel like we're reaching that point where, okay, there might be a little anxiety and hesitation, or really like, oh shit, what's going to happen after this, after next week? Because next week is going to be sort of debriefing. And I want to sort of talk about what are the options in regards to keeping this community alive and thriving until everyone starts hitting that critical mass of notes, and I think that is going to be super important, especially with this group here. Just to give you a little foresight, I do plan on running our Rome Book Club 4 in the middle of April. And so it's sort of like, it'll probably be the exact same thing and, probably get community feedback of how to make it even better. But I do want to make sure that everyone here has that sense of like resources and support, accountability. So, I mean, I'm open. I'm just going to leave it open. You guys know what's going on. Let me know how can we make this happen? I think Yina had a lot of options talking about Circle. Circle sounds like a great option.
Yeah, I can jump in. Yeah, I can jump in really quickly. So I know there's some conversation going on in Slack. So I figured I would centralize some of the different options that people have and the concerns that we also want to make sure is like managed with everyone. So right now, so far, there's kind of 3 current options that are been floating around. And if anyone has additional ones, please feel free to drop it either in the Slack or the Zoom chat. But right now it's Circle, which is there's a $39 per month membership that we would need to resolve the cost on. There's Facebook and then there's Slack. So there's pros and cons to each, obviously. And I think that, obviously just want to make sure that we have everyone's needs considered. So yeah.
I mean,
Circle was my vote.
I'll foot the bill for Circle. I mean, it's like $79 a month. That's cool. I don't care, right? But I just want to make sure that it's a place where like, you know, honestly, what I was also thinking was like, what if I just had like coaching sessions just available for everyone, right? And then all of those videos, because again, I can't cover all the answers, but all those videos as they come up. So say maybe someone has a problem at their 5th or 6th permanent note, and they're getting a little confused. Well, I'll record that session, throw that into Circle, and then you guys can just join in and just watch that at your time, comment on it, and then learn from each other. And, you know, I had a session with Carol's here, right? And it was like, I felt like the Zettelcast and Whisperer. And, you know,
awesome.
yeah, and it's like, listen, I don't know what I'm doing, but I can spot when it's not right, you know? And if you watch that video, I just posted it today, but if you watch that video, you'll notice that right in the beginning, I go, this doesn't seem like you, right? And after we went through the process, it was like, oh, no shit. It's because it wasn't her. It was actually a copy paste. It was a duplication. It wasn't her. And so then once we started building out her notes, it was like, oh, the reflection. I could start seeing the reflection. And so, you know, I think those things are things that everyone needs to see and experience as they could grow out their Zettelcast. And it's not over until you hit critical mass. That's when I can let go. And I just feel like Circle would, I don't know any other, I'm open for suggestions. You know, Slack could work, but I feel like Slack is like not as powerful. You know, a Facebook group maybe, or, you know, even just maybe the Roam shared graph. It is closed off. I mean, we could just do Roam shared graph as well. No to Facebook. Yeah. It was like 3 back to back to back. Okay, so we're not doing Facebook.
Yay, cool.
I don't have Facebook.
I was also going to say is that, Bo, maybe one other thing is I think we all really do love the community aspect. I don't know if it's like a active working session where people can kind of just work on their permanent notes, or even like an active conversation session, but maybe that's something that we can also set up to have more of a face-to-face interaction that kind of, I feel like is like what accelerated this like connection with everyone, right? But I don't know.
Can you do these sort of like Zoom calls through Circle? Or would I have to upload it to Circle?
So what do you mean by that? I like what I was thinking is like we have potentially like, for example, like a set event that has like a Zoom link, and it can be like at Sunday at 3:30 p.m. or whatever time.
Like the Roam reading rooms kind of thing.
Yeah. This can be like a co-working session where people can, this would be the time that people can add their permanent notes, or it can be even just like a Roam conversations section. Because I don't know if other people kind of agree, but I feel like partially what brings this group really alive is that we have these chances to interact with each other on a face-to-face level, or like via Zoom conversation. So I think that accelerates the text-based connection that we have, and it kind of enhances it.
I mean, if no one has a hard no on Circle, I think I want to pursue that route. Just because there's chat, there's asynchronous learning. I can throw my videos on there as well, and then I can also have like calendar and like say, hey, let's have a Tuesday session. We'll do one at noon, one at midnight, so everyone gets a hit in it. You know what I mean?
Can we all do like? Is there a way to do like a private GoFundMe where we can all help out with that? I don't want one person to just pay for that, but I'm totally happy to pitch in. We can just like get a funding round going, and we can probably come up with a first year of payment. If it's $39 a month for the whole group.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, how do you want to do that?
I don't know. Can I find someone $39? I'll just start right now.
It's if we do the basic cost, basically we just need to crowdfund $468 for the basic tier, which is $39 a month.
Perfect.
And I think that, Bo, that one is up to caps at 1,000 members, which I don't foresee this potentially growing up to that level that quickly. And if not, you can always upgrade afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I do want to funnel in new blood, because there's something about like mentorship and like teaching others. So, I mean, the reason that I'm doing back-to-back RBC 3, RBC 4 with Sonkei's book is because I want this group to be able to teach the next group, like not teach, but like mentor the next group, because that way that's like crystallizes and solidifies what you've learned about Zettelkasten, and you'll feel what I feel about like, oh my God, it's like that's what it is. And so that way it's like, okay, so 3 can feed 4 and then 4 can feed 5 kind of thing. And yeah, I don't know how we want to do it. Contribute to PayPal on both. Like, here's the deal. Like I've explicitly not taken any money because I see the power of this. And I know that if I charged for this, then people would have an excuse to say it doesn't work. And I think this is too powerful to do that. But I think the circle group would be something where it's like, yeah, I mean, if we can get a community of people together to raise that funds, that'll give us a year runway. And I feel like, yeah, I mean, do we even need to do the year though? Okay, is there like 6-month plan? Like, you know what I mean?
I think there's a month-by-month plan.
Yeah.
Yes, I was just calculating out. Yeah. Let me double check.
How about this? I'll cover the first month. Let's feel it out. You know what I mean? Let's grow it out a little bit, and then from there we'll figure out how to do the next. I guess you are charging. It's us with skin in the game. You're actually right. You're actually incredibly right. That's exactly what it is. You got the skin in the game.
No,
yeah.
If you offer something for free, a lot of times people don't take it as seriously. Like when I was teaching in Costa Rica, we pay to teach, but when the students got it for free, they didn't always show up and it wasn't quite the same. And as soon as they charged like $20, it made all the difference. So people started showing up, they had skin in the game. You just have to put some sort of what we call legally consideration. So it's part of just building community.
You know what? My initial idea behind all this, by the way, was to charge like $500, right? And if you finished it, you'd get your $500 back.
That's good. I like that.
You know what I mean? And it was like that's what I was thinking. But again, that's neither here nor there. I mean, I do really want to have something set up before next Sunday though, and I really feel like the circle route is going to work. If we want to create a fund for the year, I mean, I think we could probably scrounge that up.
Yeah, I think Circle makes a way to charge memberships, I think. But I mean, even if you just do something like $1 a month or something from everybody here, to put up a little moat, and the people that want to be there can be there.
Yeah. I feel like there's about, I mean, well, there's 50 people on this call right now. You have a couple of people that can't show up. I mean, it's somewhere between 40 to 80 people, maybe, that's like consistent and writing in the shared graph and that really are digging in. Yeah, I mean, I'm up for suggestions. I say, so at the moment, let's just have this discussion on the Slack. If everyone can jump on that for now, and then we'll figure out exactly what that looks like, and I'll have something set up by Sunday for sure. And I'll also open up coaching sessions for this entire week tomorrow, Rome Reading Room tomorrow as well at 6:30. And yes, I feel like, yeah. I am going to take a road trip after this. So I'll probably be out of commission for about a week after next Sunday. So just giving everyone a heads up. And what channel should we join? I think Roy made a RBC3 bow group. I'll put those in chat, I guess. I don't know how you throw this in chat. How do you throw this in chat? I'm just gonna. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that's about all the housekeeping that needs to be said. There's a lot of progress that's been made. I think everyone's, at different points, but the point of all of this is to sort of push through into 60, 70, 80 permanent notes. And I think just for reassurance, I got there in 3 months, so you can do this. And maybe it is time to sprint a little bit to get it rolling a little. And then once you sprint there, you'll start going, oh, okay, I get it. Everything will fall into place. Any other discussions? How did you guys like the guests, by the way? Yeah, Simon, I got a t-shirt coming for you too, by the way. I owe you for that. Actually, I don't know. I think what it is, I think Matt McKinley set it up where you can actually purchase anything from this store. So, so the guests were good.
Oh, that was amazing. They were both fantastic.
Yeah.
I do have a question though, because you, if I remember right, I know we'll probably have to end pretty soon, but you kind of hinted that there might be a big reveal coming about the output phase.
Oh yeah,
So,
I lied. Sorry, Mike. I know Mike was asking about that too, about the retrieval process. Well, this is what I realized. I was doing the coaching sessions and I was like, yeah, we're going to get into retrieval. We're going to get into retrieval. But then I realized you can't retrieve it if you didn't write the notes. If you wrote the notes, you can retrieve and traverse, right? But I realized it's like, no, you don't know what that feels like yet. You have to build the notes and then you can retrieve it. So Mike, I'm looking at you right now, Michael Barr. I know I told you we were going to do this whole traversal thing. Then I realized middle of this week, like, wait a second, they can't do that yet. And the purpose of the shared graph was to show you what it could like. If you just imagine that was all your notes, the possibilities of that. And it's I think the analogy that I sort of fall back on, it's like everyone can tell you what to prepare for, what it feels like, how it feels to have a child that is yours being born in your hands, but it doesn't compare to that moment when it's yours. And it's the same idea. And it doesn't matter what anything I could say, it doesn't matter until you have that. Could you show us your traversing in your graph? You have tons of notes in there. Yeah, I mean, it's just, but it's all my notes. I mean,
but could you demo like writing an article, say, outline it, going from outlining to
let's do it.
Structuring, I don't know.
Yeah, demo the process, like more like the how versus the what, like the output will be.
All right, you want me to freestyle? Let's go. Okay.
Well, do you want to make another 100 tweets?
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. Let's do this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Let's go and make a page called I don't know what the page is yet. I want to go traverse. Oh, I love this shit. Here we go. Oh, fuck. I remember this. So it's saying like the best, like our most valuable artifacts are these films. And it's like, we're fucking wasting this money on like Iron Man. Like, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with Iron Man. I love Iron Man. But I'm just saying, it's like our most expensive like artifacts is film. And it's just like, you look at that and it's like, let's keep traversing here. I want to just talk about my love of acting. I feel like that's what I want to talk about right now. I'm going to open that in the sidebar. And for me, it's like this. I'm just going to go and bring it over, but really this is just a reminder. I know what this is talking about, right? What else do I have on acting? Really what I want to think about is hero, because this is like, it's really like Avatar. It's like this is why it's important. This is why I love acting, is because it's vicariously living through the avatar on the screen, right? Allows for the audience to walk through what they filter out and shield themselves from in real life. And basing these stories on that mythological structure gives credence to that purpose. Let me zoom out a little bit. I'm just looking through my fleeting notes here. When someone does not know when and how they are oriented in life, then reality is apparent. Filtering it out to shields. This is almost like, I kind of want to tell a story right now. I want to go in fear right now. And this is what I love right here. I think this is talking about this is basically the difficulty of Zettelkasten too, of understanding. Again, by the way, I have no idea where I'm going with this. I'm just sort of flowing. But I look at these notes and this reminds me of writing that too, though. And what I mean by this is, I mean, I know what I mean by it, but it's almost like when you knock down like the higher level frameworks, what did I call this? High resolution, maybe? Let's see. Boom. No. Let's do high resolution.
What are you doing? Listening to a webinar.
I love that when I search for it, though, it's like, I don't have to do any linked references, by the way. This is what I love. It's like, I find what I'm looking for because everything's nested underneath here. This is the top level parent block. And because it's referenced so much, it'll have all the text in there through fuzzy search. Let's go back to the permanent notes page now. So let's keep going. I think it's this too. I mean, there's something about like noticing, right? And so if I think about, okay, filtering out everything that shields us from, and this is sort of like the difficulty of Zettelkasten, right? But if there's an emotional connection to that, right? I'm just going to go and drag that over. And this is sort of like the answer to it, because if you have an emotional connection to the purpose and an outcome, let's go to outcome maybe. See what happens. And then what it does is it also creates a success cycle. Let's bring that in too. I'm going to go ahead and do a numbered list. So that's the sort of like, this is the sort of like, if I had to name this, I guess I would call this, oops, what happened? Stop. Is it lagging? No, okay. Is it lagging? There it goes, hold on. Let me stop sharing, hold on. I'm gonna close some of my windows here.
Oh, Bo, while you're doing that, I had one question. I didn't know if there is what your logic would be about this, but I was wondering if like, kind of like what Brother Spirit did, and also I did as well. We had like an exchange about showing our own permanent notes as like a summary page. I think that was one thing that I missed a lot from the daily lessons, where I could kind of see other people's kind of entries in a single consolidated source, just to compare against my own kind of abstractions. So I was wondering if it would be an option, or if there's a reason against it, to have people create their own permanent notes collection that you can kind of browse through to see how the abstract, you know, the fleeting literature note and the permanent note on top, if that makes sense, or if that's too invasive. What are your thoughts on that?
So what I hear you asking is, why can't you link back to your permanent note?
I'm asking, like, are people interested in creating a separate page under their name page of just the permanent notes that they've created, so that potentially like people like me would want to, I don't know if snooping is a very strong word, but just curious about how other people abstract, or how other people write their notes, stuff like that, just like as an easier way to centralize like all of that information at once. Like for example, when I first started, like I would look at, different people's answers for their journal entry, or sorry, the daily lessons, stuff like that.
I think it's different when it's your Zettelkasten though, no? Because then you don't need to do that.
Yes, it's different, but so I'm just wondering if that is possible for our specific shared graph, just for the shared graph. But if it's like not recommended, that's also fine. I was just, yeah.
Problem I see with that is that we're not going to have the linking system there, because we're in the shared graph, we're linking to other people's permanent notes. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I'm kind of confused on what. Can you give me a little bit clearer, like example? What do you mean?
Yeah, sure. Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
For a sec. Okay. So what I mean is, whoops. Oh my god. So here I kind of like what Brother Spirit did. Brother Spirit and I both created like a consolidated list of like all of our notes that we've created in the shared graph. And so like I really liked afterwards, I actually went through and looked at like oh shoot, where did it go? Brother Spirit, where did your permanent notes go? I think you had a collection, right?
I did it. I only did it in my personal graph. I didn't do it in the RBC Book Club.
Okay,
graph.
never mind.
And just remember that if you bring over any of your permanent notes from the RBC shared graph, you have to start from scratch. You can keep your fleeting notes and your literature notes and your reference notes, but the permanent notes are going to be different.
Yeah.
Your index notes are going to be different because it's a different conversation.
Okay.
I also, Yina, I actually ended up deleting that page in my own graph because it was messing up my linked references, because it's basically making 2 copies of every permanent note. I mean, maybe I just did it the wrong way, but then in the linked reference, so where I had one note as a relevant note, in a different permanent note, then it would basically show up twice in the linked references instead of once, because it was showing up as a link from the note on the daily page and on the archive page.
Got it.
I wanted to add something here. If I'm understanding this correctly, you want everyone's to be able to see everyone's permanent note in one place, right, Ina?
Kind of, yeah, basically. So what Colby is also saying is like, well, I'm poorly asking as well, I think.
The way I did this, right, because I wanted to basically have a copy, is instead of referencing the note, I referenced the timestamp and put that onto a captured place under a heading called completed. So that way, if I want to see it, I can just double click on the timestamp and it will direct me straight to the note.
Wouldn't a possible simple solution be to just, if everybody that wants to participate in that could just simply tag their permanent notes with something, with kind of like a hashtag their own name? That might be a way that it would be able to be created also.
Yeah, I'm guessing that might mess up with the when you traverse the slip box to basically see the relevant notes, and when you open the links, basically, if I'm correct. I'm not too sure about that, to be honest.
I'm gonna try what people mentioned in the chat. So
maybe
thanks
Elias
everyone.
is the solution.
What did you say?
I said I don't.
Can you explain the alias thing?
Oh, right. Yeah. You just link yourself back to the block. You just create a link to the block, right?
Yes. It will populate on your link references in your own page in the book club. That's what I'm doing, alias. Because you can alias pages.
I'm still confused. Can you tell me how to do it as if I was like 3 years old?
I don't know how to explain.
And what are you trying to do? Are you trying to see who wrote a note? or one note a specific person wrote? This is directed to Ina specifically. Like, what would you like to be able to see?
Yeah, so I think Colby kind of was saying it like, or helped phrase it, which is like, basically, I just want to see how other people are creating their notes. Like that is like just like a collection of all their notes jumbled together. So for example, like if I went into Samantha's like page, I used to be able to see, and again, I don't know if this is snooping, so, but like seeing the responses to the daily lessons, it was another way for me to kind of get another perspective on the same homework assignment. And so I think for the what's made it difficult is like I want to, for example, see a linear kind of collection of thought for people that are going through the reference notes. So like, for example, with Brother Spirit, when he had like acrasia down to a scientific method, like it was very clear to see how his thought process kind of like formed as he traversed through more and more of the content. So I was wondering if there's a centralized source for everyone's permanent notes that aren't scattered. Yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
When you look at this kind of grouping, are you more likely to look for what a specific person has done across a series of topics, or do you think you're more likely to do something, for example, like what different people have done for the same topic? So, for example, one thing that I haven't done, but I know it could be done. I don't do it because I don't want to see, I don't want to condition what I think. But one thing that I don't want to do because I think it will condition the way I think about a topic, but you can do is when you, this was mostly with the book we're reading. If you go to a specific block, a specific paragraph, you can see how many people have reference that specific paragraph, so you can see what fleeting and literature notes and then consequently permanent notes have been extracted from that paragraph.
That's a good suggestion. Yeah, I think like
because I feel like you're more likely to get better. It's like if you want to see other people work, you're more likely to get benefit in the context of the work you're doing rather than just from random stuff they've done, unless you're really interested in their style. And in that case, fine, you want to see like what a person has done across different things.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that's I'm gonna try that strategy as well. I think for me was like why I wanted to see everyone's notes in a centralized way is like I want to understand how people think potentially. I don't know if that helps. Like by following where they're blocking things out and like how their permanent notes are connected from one to another was interesting to me because I did just from observing Brother Spirits, like it became kind of like I could see a story forming from the permanent notes that he had collected. So it's just more like I want to get insight into how people think, but I also see the risk of it potentially influencing my own thinking. So it's a good thought exercise about how to balance that.
But I see what you're saying. It's a good learning tool. If you come across someone's notes and you can see something in that structure that really helps to clarify something for you about how to put those notes together, you want to go and find more of those notes from that same person so you can read the rest of them and then kind of get a repetition going, and that can help learning. I did that early on too, where I found some people that put their notes together in a certain way that helped me to figure out how to move forward, and then I tried looking for more of their notes, but it took time to find that for sure because it was just scattered around.
But couldn't you solve that by doing a subpage under your own name / permanent notes like someone suggested, and then I can't remember whose suggestion it was, but then just do a block reference of the timestamp, and then the only thing that will do to disrupt the permanent notes is it'll just add a block reference within the permanent notes, but otherwise everything else remains as is, and it's organized by person that way. But that's what you're really looking for, right? Is to look through a person's work once you found something that's kind of a useful model.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I've been doing that for my own, and it is one other step that's a tedious, like it's more manual or a tedium to the workflow. But like I was wondering if other people are doing it or have done it or interested in doing it.
Well, and then to use Nettie's point, you could also, once you've got that block reference, then you can use just Control K, and you could make it topical so that it's easier for someone to know whether it's a note they want to see, rather than having to just be referenced by the timestamp, and that just shows up on the page. It doesn't show up back in the permanent notes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the alien. So you could make, I might get this wrong actually, but I'm just going to throw it out there. So on your own page, you could create a block, would be, you could name it whatever, first permanent note, and you would highlight all those words and do Control K. And the link would be to your permanent note that's on the permanent notes. And so you would have, on your own page, you could just link over to the other notes and just create a series of those. Permanent note 1, permanent note 2. You can name it whatever you want to, but just turn it into a regular link.
Okay, let me.
Roy, is that what you were saying?
The light just dawned.
Roy, was that what you meant?
Thank you for explaining, Brian.
Well, but if you do it to the block that's in the permanent note, then you got to click through. If you do it to the timestamp and then label it differently, you've got the embedded material beneath it. You're kind of using Bo's.
Oh, right. I see.
A block stack, right? So
okay. You go up one more.
It saves you a click, but it's not a big deal. Whatever is simplest for you to.
Yeah.
Think.
Yeah, I think I'm still learning how to use Roam properly as well. So this makes sense. I think that's what Simon did. So I'm gonna follow this reference.
Is there a way to do it as a block, an embed, and then you hover over the embed and turn it into text? I mean, I'm just trying to avoid the doubling up of the links in the link references on the permanent notes page. Does that make sense? Does that actually create like a separate, like a new block that isn't the same block anymore if you do replace as text? I'm just trying to learn how it works, because these are still things that mystify me a little bit. Does anybody get what I mean?
I think what you're saying is if you do a block reference and then you turn it into text as opposed to reference, then you do duplicate it. So you have the same text in two places. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because then you avoid getting a double linked reference in the permanent notes, in the relevant notes of other people who have linked to it. So it doesn't.
You also don't get you can't link back to see the context, although you could do it as an alias, I guess.
And maybe I'm not thinking correctly, so somebody tell me where the flaw is in this thought, but it seems to me like the simplest way would just be to tag our personal notes with a simple hashtag our name, and then it would all fall under the main name page. Every permanent note for every single person would fall under their main name page. Wouldn't that be the simplest way to do it? And the only departure it would have from Bo's system is nothing more than you've got a hashtag at the front of the permanent note, and you can have a hashtag at the actual, you could either put it additional onto the referent on the relevant note, or you could put it on the permanent note at the end instead of the beginning. And I think you'd have very little departure from the structure, unless I'm thinking wrong in some way.
Can I argue against the tags? So I think like initially, the reason why Bo did not want people to add tags or links that are at least within permanent node, relevant nodes and below, he didn't want us to start linking things across the graph, is because try to put yourself in the shoes of someone that is still confused and wasn't on this call or is not going to watch this video. Is going to start seeing tags and links which do not match the framework that they have been taught, and that could be confusing. So the best way is trying to not leave any obvious link to a page and trying to be as subtle as possible. But then it's like everyone can do what they want. It's kind of if you want other people to be able to see the notes that you've done, you can just do a section on your page or a sub page or a page with your name as a namespace and just put your permanent notes finished. And I'm pretty sure people, however you choose to link them to your page, people will see them because you put finished, completed permanent notes. But keep in mind that if you start adding lots of tags, other people that are still struggling might start getting confused about what is going on.
You could always just do a screenshot of your finished permanent node and just put that on your page, and that won't mess with the permanent node structure. Interesting.
I think another alternative approach might be, instead of just trying to link it, just create just copy the text instead. So you've got an unlinked reference that doesn't directly affect the permanent nodes page, but you've got a you've got the text there that explains what the permanent node is, and then link that text same way that you would link to a URL. So basically just link it to the timestamp, and that way when you double click on that permanent nodes, you double click on that permanent nodes, it'll take you directly to the timestamp, and you can then see the entire process. If that solves it, maybe. Or did that not make sense?
Imagine if we started that in the first place at the very beginning, the alias thing. So every permanent nodes has, we will know the owner of the permanent nodes, because besides the timestamp, you will only see the asterisk, and then if you click the asterisk, you will see the name of the owner of the permanent node, if I'm making any sense.
You're making permanent sense, and I think your system works really, really well.
Maybe I regret I didn't suggest that sooner.
Okay, sorry to hijack the conversation. Both, please feel free to continue.
Wait, I don't know what you're talking. Sorry. So basically, all I'm doing is I'm just going through. Just a quick update. So I just drew like this is just I'm just making it up, right? I dragged over all the linked references. I just got enough to where I can sort of start writing, right? And then basically I have this in the sidebar, and I've sort of underneath it, I just shift clicked it, this bullet point up to the top of the sidebar. So now I'm just basically going through each one of these sources, seeing what it reminds me of, but then I'm also jumping to different places as well. And then I'm just writing. And when they talk about top down, bottom up, I feel like there's a lot of I think the best analogy that came to me recently is that if you ask someone, the weather in Seattle, you could be specific and say, well, Monday it was sunny, Tuesday it was raining, Wednesday it was cloudy, Thursday it was raining, right? You could say that, or you could say it's typically gloomy and depressing. And it's the same idea with Zettelkasten, and it's like it's primarily bottom up, but top down is very helpful because this is basically top down. I've drilled over all my notes over here, and these are all what I've already I wrote this, so this makes sense to me. And so now basically what I'm doing is starting from the top, I'm just going down and I'm just articulating it in my words in a way that could be used as a sort of blog post, if that makes sense. And I mean, I could keep going, but I'm kind of, yeah. And I'm just jumping, and really I don't know where the next notes are going to lead me, but it's just going, okay, well, let me go to this one here, and this leads me to this block reference, but then I have all the information that I need. And then I can also jump to the permanent node itself, which shows me exactly where it's located in the permanent nodes page, if that makes sense. I mean, does that help? Do you want me to keep going, or do you understand what I'm doing here in regards to sort of creating an article?
I think that's awesome, Bo. My only question would be, you said an article or a blog post. At what point do you start? You go from that inside out to outside in. When do you I watched Martha's session, and you sort of had different Zettelkasten or different threads for different destinations, and that was quite interesting. Sort of like, oh, this is going to be for Twitter, this might be for something else. Where do you draw those distinctions? How much do you draw those distinctions? When do you start going, oh, this is going to be a blog post, or this is going to be my magnum opus or whatever? How do you sort of decide on that?
I don't think it's a different hat for sure. You know what I mean? Like creating the notes is a different hat than like output. I mean, the only time I've really had to like test my output was Threadapalooza, you know, and that was like 100 tweets, tweet storm, right? And it's like, then I jumped into teaching it. And so it's kind of like, I'm waiting to write a screenplay with it, you know, but I need more notes. You know, I feel like I have too much of a, I'm at probably 140, and I feel like I still have too much of a grasp of where everything is. And I've learned it. I've applied it in my life. It's changed my life. But listen, I mean, if you think about it, it's only been since September, you know, I'm not the guru on this, you know. I figured out the mechanics of how to do it in Rome, and I'm really cheering you guys on because I feel like you guys are more acclimated to going, okay, I need to get this output. I need to get this output. I need to get this output, you know? So I'm ready to learn from you all, really. You know, I sort of led you towards the place where you can build it functionally. And when you were talking about Twitter, Twitter is basically just a project Zettelkasten. And I have it separated from my main Zettelkasten because I don't want non-referenced sort of source material stuff in my main Zettelkasten. Because I needed to see if it was true. You know, if I made a formidable dialogue partner, like, is this truly going to show me who I am? And it did. And so could I begin adding permanent notes that didn't have references? I probably could by now. I don't want to yet. Lumen did. I recommended some people did, you know, but for now, I just want to keep building it out. And, you know, at 140, I still feel like it's weak. You know, it's not as strong as I wanted. I want more notes. And yeah, but I did RBC2, I did RBC3, I did prep for that. Now I'm about to get prepped for RBC4. Do I think output is incredibly easy with this? Absolutely. Do I have proof of it? I'm waiting for you guys. I'm waiting for you guys to build it out. Can I do it? Of course. Can you do it? Of course. Because every note that you add to the Zettelkasten is not just a note, it's actually your learning. You know? But I mean, this is just a basically on the fly example of like literally all you have to do is just bring over your notes in whatever way you want to, and then just start writing. And you know, it was funny. I was doing a coaching session with someone. I don't think he's here, but he was reading through Naval's almanac or whatever, and it almost felt like basically all of his fleeting notes and literature notes was the article, and the permanent note was like the tweet. And I just thought that was incredibly interesting. And so all that work that you're doing is not gone to waste. I mean, even now, I mean, the very first place I go to is the fleeting notes, just because it reminds me of what the ideas were. And honestly, I was getting a little pissed off because I saw some of the notes and they weren't really abstracted. It was kind of like glossed. And I was sort of getting mad at myself for like, shit, man, I should have gotten deeper there.
I have a related question.
Hi.
Hi. It's about, I think that one of your goals is to write a screenplay with your Zettelkasten. Do you think that having a specific type of output,
I don't want a screenplay. I want prolific amount of screenplays. That's the idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but then if you know the kind of output that you want out of it, does that affect the way what you want to practice with your Zettelkasten? So for example, I would have the idea of, I don't know, having actual excerpts of really impactful, I don't know, scenes or something to, I don't know, analyze better or like embed into your ways of this. So I'm just wondering if a different approach is needed for creating fiction as opposed to creating articles or something non-fictiony.
I know Sonke was like, with creative output, it wasn't something that he was geared towards. Like the Zettelkasten is really geared towards nonfiction research and manuscripts. And what I realized is that by doing the work of mythological structure, doing the work of Jungian psychology, doing the work of biblical texts, it's that I realized that all the books on screenwriting have all been top down, and they've all said, okay, you need to find the plot points. This is the this is the climax, and it's very character story driven. And what I realized was that because with all the work that I've been doing, that I started seeing like patterns, and it was like the theme was what was most important. What's the meaning of this? What's the underlying, like, I'm gonna watch this? And that's where it's been like, if I have that theme, then all I need to do is layer the character and dialogue on top of it, and it's just yeah, how do you explain this? It's like I was coming out of the shower, and I had this idea of this woman who had to, because one of my permanent notes is talking about the transition that women make, the sacrifice that they make when they give up their dreams in order to have a child, right? And what that does is it basically raises their context of how they live to a higher context, because now it's not about me. They raise it to, I'm actually, like, as a woman giving birth to a child, it's actually helping mankind. It's helping humanity. And I was just thinking about a story about a woman's journey butting up against that and deciding not to do that. But that story idea would never have come to me unless I understood all this stuff underneath it. And that's what I feel like I've been doing. And I've been sort of drawn towards the sort of structure of all this. But these things don't have anything to do with screenwriting or the technique of screenwriting or creative characters. It's like, no, but I can immediately see the dialogue coming in, like I can see it already, like even just talking about, I'm getting excited. Do you know what I mean? So as for creative output, I think this is the foundation of creative output, but people just haven't seen that yet, or haven't been given permission to see that yet. Because obviously academically, this is the easiest way to do it, because you see all your notes. But for creatives, it's just, oh my God, this is like, I mean, my team keeps telling me, so I've got a team, a couple assistants, right? And it's like, they keep telling me that, like, keep doing this Zettelkasten thing, because you never know if Aaron Sorkin is going to be like, dude, what are you doing? And I get it, because, what happens if I present Zettelkasten to Sundance's lab in Salt Lake, and go, hey, do you want an idea generating machine? Like, how sexy does an idea generating machine sound, for screenwriters and literary people? And it's just, I felt that once I hit critical mass, because I could literally just click, 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 and scope, and everything's there. Now it's just a matter of doing it. And yeah. And it's like, I'm there. I want to do it. And it's like, that's the motivation for all of this. Why did I want to learn Zettelkasten? Well, it was for the screenwriting. Peter, you got your hand up?
I feel like, so I put myself this pet project. I'm a squarehead. I'm an engineer. I deal with numbers. Not very creative. We try, we fail. But I got a nephew that is just is 3 years old, and I wanted to write like a series of story for him. And at the same time, I play D&D, and I have I don't know, I got different characters, different stories, and different characters that don't have someone playing them, and you bump into them, they got background and something. And I found that I have something like, I'm using something like the one that you have, this is the custom you have discussed and introduced everyone to in this book club, to shape my understanding of how things are perceived by people in books, in ideas, in philosophy. So I understand better what to write about. And I feel like in the end, like the movies, the books with bigger depth are from people that manage to go beyond just telling a story. They understand there's something behind. The best characters are the ones that have got challenges that are real, relatable. But in order to do that, you need to start understanding not only like, okay, I want a hero that doesn't trust anyone. It's kind of like, cool, yes, but why? It's like, what happened? There's like so many layers, but you need to understand it. So the understanding and the studying happens in there. But then, for example, for me, it's much easier for D&D. It's much easier to have something more like a small Wikipedia or like the evergreen note style arrangement, because I can just click things and people say like, okay, we go in a bar, and I click the bar name and I already have the list of all the people that are in the bar. And if I click on the person, I got the list of, I quickly in a glance, I have what the job is, if they're married to anyone, if I go any, and I go so much more detail, I move more quickly that when I talk through it, people are kind of like, how do you remember all the stuff? It's like you can, and I've seen people trying to do this on paper, and they're just like continuously flipping through things. It's kind of like, oh no, it's one click away, because I'm just moving from one room to another, from one context to another. But it's two different things. One is just kind of like very quick improv and having context everywhere, but the other one is just like understanding lots of the building blocks of the mind, of the world, of the economics. For example, I'm interested in like, how am I going to create this world in the book for my nephews? Like, what is the economics? What is the religion? What are the religions that different people are? And understanding that happens in the Zotero custom, because then when I have multiple ideas, I start going like, ooh, what if I add this and this? And I put them together and I got something. And that you draw the connections.
That I think is the key to all of this too. And it's like, it makes us not become like parrots and do the abstractions. It's like, that's the thing that I've always been scared of, is like becoming a parrot, you know? And it's like the depth of what I think, the depth of who I've become has gotten so much deeper because I've done the writing, I've done the, you know, thinking about this. And so I'm right there with you, man. What is everyone hopeful for?
There's so much potential that it's a little scary. So I'm just hopeful that a year from now, I have the same energy, enthusiasm, and the notes are going into my permanent graph just with the same volume that they're going in now. I mean, to be honest, I've always want to wake up in the morning and write, but I do now because it's so fun. And I just can't believe that there's a tool, an application that has caused that shift. And Bo, your book club here has just 10x'd all of that and made what used to be just some weird hope turn into an actual visualization. It's like, oh my God, that is a mountain. And I think I can walk up that mountain. So I'm hopeful that a year from now, I have my critical mass.
Yeah, I think it'll happen earlier. So, I mean, for me, it's that sense of, so basically if I can have trust in a system, what it does is it releases more RAM for me to think about other things. And so this is how I'm able to do so much more, because it's like, okay, my note taking and learning is over here. It works. I trust in it. I see the reflection. I have a critical mass. Awesome. And now it's like, I can do other things now, if that makes sense. It's so weird. And don't get me wrong. And the beauty of this is like, dude, I haven't like, if you like, the last permanent note I wrote was December, right? And then I wrote another one in January, and it was like a month apart. And it's like, I could have done that with my eyes closed. I can still do it with my fucking eyes closed, you know? And it's like, it's there when I'm ready to work for it. And I think that's the key thing I want you guys to all to get to, is that, you know, it's not a race to the critical mass. But once you get there, it's like, you're at this whole different place. And I'm getting chills thinking about it, but it's like, you're at this whole different place because you're just like, fuck, this works. And then I'm cool and I get the structure. It's there. Now I can like enjoy what I want to enjoy, instead of like frantically saying this is, you know, like who hasn't gone through Notion? Who hasn't gone through, you know what I mean? I was waiting on Obsidian to like, okay, is Obsidian going to do this? You know what I mean? Or is Rome going to open up the waiting list? Whichever's going to be first. And then it's just like, to not have to do that anymore, it just frees up my life from the chains of the shiny consumption. And it's just, yeah, I think that's the sort of, and once you get to that point, that's critical mass. Because then, like the reason I keep saying critical mass is because once you hit critical mass, you can trust in your system. Once you trust in your system, then all the relief and comes into place. And then you just do it when you want to do it.
Today, after our discussion this morning, Bo, I redid all of my permanent notes, and I've added 2 more in today. And already I can begin to see how it's going to work.
By the way, Carol's video is a masterclass in Zettelkasten, by the way. I wrote that on the title too. It's too good. Well, I mean, I needed an example of how to get through 1 to 5 permanent notes too in your own shared graph. And this is what really sparked my mind of like, well, we've got to really just keep having videos of people struggling through like, okay, 1 to 5 permanent notes in your graph. How about 5 to 10 permanent notes in your graph? How about 10 to 20 permanent notes in your graph? Because it was, yeah. And it doesn't mean everyone needs to be at that point. It just means that, hey, you know, it's like what I'm doing. It's like, hey, I've gotten to this point, but hey, come on, hurry up, let's do this. You know, show me how to do a better way to output. You know, Michael, I'm looking at you, Bart. You know, I didn't have the pressure to have like a manuscript done by a certain time, but I'm pretty sure that you're gonna figure it out.
We're on mute.
Mute.
Or perhaps microphone issue.
Yeah, I don't see it. He's unmuted and he's out. He's out. He'll jump back in.
Well, while he's doing that, I have a quick thought. Notwithstanding fully developing a real means and habit of creating fleeting notes to literature notes to a permanent note, and then of course the relevant notes. But as I was thinking about it and just kind of meditating on some of what we talked about, it seems like, well, once you've developed all the skills around all 4 elements, I mean, you could look at your Zettelkasten in and of itself, see a whole, and actually start essentially from the place of relevant notes, and then build backwards. You could actually have a thought that's permanent note level that you then go back and put into the overall structure in terms of where it fits, and it might morph a little bit in that process. But then you're building out substantiation in various references that you want to underline that thought. You want to underline that thought, various fleeting notes that pertain to that. It seems like every single area could be the initiation of that process once you're fully skilled and developed in the whole methodology. Do you see that? Is that, I mean, it seems to me like that's really crystallized in my mind, although I know that for me, I had been kind of lacking, of course, in the fleeting note zone, but so not in any way setting aside the development of that skill, but I see kind of a very holistic means of being able to build out your structure in the most advantageous way possible.
Yeah, I mean, the chat is crushing it right there. That's exactly what it is. The missing permanent note. So basically, I mean, what happens? So if you have like a missing permanent note, right? Like that immediately makes you go out and seek out that information, right? That's what I kind of hear you saying.
Yeah, but I had that exact same, like today, I actually need a higher level permanent note because actually the sublevels would make no sense. So I can just go out and find that information now. Yeah, it was pretty crazy actually. So really clicked, really resonated with Curtis there. It's kind of like you've got this list of notes and then actually I'm missing a key bit of information. Why not go and find it and then build a note around it? Yeah, really useful.
But you would add the note to a different conversation. You wouldn't put it on top. You would add it to another conversation. you would either do another top level parent block or have it as a child block.
Child block of the other one.
Yeah, and then just connect it.
Yeah, it's really sick. But I did want to say as well though, you know, like the capture stuff, I realized how critical it was today, because I had some really shitty capture notes, and they were so bad actually, like the references, it took me so long to get it in an order that I could process it. I wasted my 2 hours writing time. And then I really wanted to write this morning because I really have started loving getting up at 5 and writing permanent notes for 2 hours. And actually, I just had got nothing that I could process that was good enough, and then kind of wasted 2 hours. So for me, I actually realized that how important it is when you're doing the fleeting note, or the, you know, like the captures, to make sure actually the references back are good enough as well. Yeah, that was a big one for me today.
I think, and it's so like that's your territory now. I would share it with the group though too, you know, how you're doing it. Capturing is so important, by the way. That's the purpose of all of this. It's almost like, I don't know, I'm not qualified to talk about any of this, so just take it with a grain of salt, but I really feel like, you know, our unconscious mind sort of highlights the things that we need. And so if I'm reading something, or if I'm watching something, if I'm listening to something, that's highlighted to me for a reason. And it's on me to capture that moment, expand upon it enough to where when I come back to this, I can process it. And that's capturing is one process, processing is one process. And then once all that's done, going back into it and traveling through it is the third process, I feel like. But yeah, capturing it is very important. You got to be fast. It's got to be fast. It's got to be direct and pinpointed. And I forget who I was in a session with, but it was just like, it was the practice of literally just reading a sentence at a time. And what happens is, instead of, I mean, it's the habit of highlighting. I get it. And sometimes you want to do whole paragraphs, but when you're actually reading, or when you're reading, watching, or listening to anything, you don't take in the whole paragraph. It's actually one word at a time, and one word at a time. And maybe things are building up, but then it's just this one line that's just like, that's the thing that caught your attention. And if you highlight, what's going to happen is, instead of getting the exact point, you're going to get like the fuzzier highlight around it, you know? And if you can capture that exact point, capture it, abstract it, and get to that, oh shit, amazing, at the abstraction part of your fleeting notes, right, Brian? You know what I mean? Once you get to that point of, oh shit, amazing, then you're like, oh, I got it. I captured it. And then you add this to your permanent notes. Like all of these permanent notes are like, fuck, oh my God. And it's like, capture it, capture it, capture it. So it's a collection of these like unconscious ahas that I've abstracted out, that has a resource, and then I've connected in a Zettelkasten. And so that's what makes it profound. And then anything else than that is going to be an archive, I feel like. You know, because I don't want to, you know, like I see a lot of people attempting to do a Zettelkasten because they think that this is going to be helpful with this or that, but then they forget that it's not about an archive. It's not about, you know, having this collection. It's about who I am, who you are, and learning who I am and who you are by seeing these aha moments in your life. Like, why am I having an aha moment? Like, what is that? That's a moment of insight. And if you can capture that exact moment, abstract on it, add it to your notes, then you can see the connection of your ahas. And it might reveal something to us. And listen, it's a scary thing if you think about it. You know, to have something go, this is what I'm interested in, or even worse, to be shown, oh my God, I'm not really interested in this. Why am I spending so much time doing this? I think Patrick's video was great on that one.
Well, it reveals your own questions to yourself over time. Like, I feel like the longer you go. Well, what struck me was when you were writing your little blog post earlier, one of the things, I won't get it exactly, but you were talking about how an actor or a character reveals something to yourself that you're not living.
Oh, it's an avatar. It's an avatar. It's a 40-foot avatar. It's technology's it's the most advanced form of storytelling is a feature film. 2 hours in a theater with random strangers.
Yeah.
The fire.
So what I thought about with respect to that though is that the character, so your Zettelkasten also reveals the characters you're not living, right? You don't call it an archive, but you're recording the context you're living through, and then like Curtis was saying, it also reveals the holes that you're not living in, or that you're not experiencing, or that you're not questioning, or you're not answering. And so it's kind of, it provides a larger picture that you can pull out and get those aha moments, those surprises, those epiphanies.
Why do they keep telling me, what's the idea of Zettel questions then? Because I have a hard time wrapping my head around that, because I feel like if you have a conversation with your Zettelkasten, you don't need to have a list of questions to question your Zettelkasten with, because you're already questioning your Zettelkasten.
Well, for me, it feels like questions arise out of my work. It arises out of the writing. It arises out of the reading, and you identify the holes, and those are your questions. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but something along those lines.
Yeah,
I think for me, that comes from your sort of prohibition on putting anything in the main Zettelkasten without a source, right? I created like a sidebar of observations, which are things I think are probably worthy of being permanent notes, but I don't have support other than my own thinking on that. Similarly, I think there are questions that arise from that. So it's a separate container for me anyway, independent of the things that I've worked through the entire, block stack of the system for a permanent note. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it does. I get what you're saying. So basically, it's a holding area for it's basically offloading even more of the RAM. So instead of you thinking about the questions, you have a page that's just like, hey, these are my questions that I'm having with my Zettelkasten. Pay attention to this. Kind of
it's almost reminders of thoughts. It's actually what my entire note system used to be, which was just an enormous reminder system of things I wanted to think about someday. This is something I can skim and relate it back to the Zettelkasten.
Yeah,
I have a thought on the questions in the Zettelkasten, and that's made me realize one thing I was worried about is we're kind of fairly quickly building up to. The permanent note is kind of like a maxim. It's kind of like a sort of a considered final statement on something that we think is true and verified because we have a reference behind it. But that's kind of a high bar to just leave sit unchallenged forever and to take for granted. And maybe you're going to change your mind over time. And so you have this really crystallized statement that is a permanent note about the world. And maybe you're going to come across something that's going to challenge that. And so you've got some conflicting ideas that are happening in the Zettelkasten. And so maybe you've got a question there. You want to represent that somehow.
But my only thing is, though, do you need the question if you're thinking about it, though?
I'm with Bo on this. I think we kind of live the questions. I mean, if you see, I've just been implementing Netty's asterisk system, which is brilliant. It took me a while, but eventually I got it. But you can see, if anybody's interested, I'm already having a conversation between some of my permanent notes, because I just happened to listen to this thing the other day about some scientists who are questioning, Darwinism, and I found it fairly convincing. I had my doubts. You can read through all the doubts and questions I had in the fleeting notes and the literature notes, but I still made a permanent note out of it because I thought it was interesting. But then today I dug into it a bit deeper because I'd made a permanent note. I wasn't satisfied, and I was kind of like, I should really check, like, what are other scientists saying about this? So then I dig into the literature a bit, and it's clear that this has been completely refuted, like this has been completely demolished. So then, fine, okay, so I go and research that and make a permanent note out of that, and then it sits next to, I don't delete the other thing, it's still there, but I'm having a conversation with it. So it's like, here's what I thought 2 days ago, and here's what I'm thinking now. And it's just, I mean, I think I'm up to 20 permanent notes now in my own graph. And man, I mean, it's getting exciting. It's like what like some others are saying. It's just so fun. It's just like, I want to do more.
But I think you're onto something though, because I express that same joy. And the reason that I'm sort of hesitant to support Zettel questions is because if I'm having this joy with, the more that I'm thinking about the notes that I'm making and seeking out new notes, then that's still thinking, and it's still critically thinking, isn't it?
It's natural. It's just the process takes you. I don't think you need to systematize it anymore. Like this is the system for me. I can see.
I don't want to take away from people that do want to have these Zettel questions, but the reason that I'm hesitant to say it is because then it goes, there's a slippery slope to an archive. And that's the only thing that I want to avoid, because it's so easy to want to go back to an archive and top down. Like even some of the coaching sessions, it was like, yes, you had 20 permanent notes, but it wasn't really 20 connected permanent notes. It was, I have an idea and I want to organize it this way, compared to what Carol Leather's doing. And it's like, that's what it is. It's like an intimate thing that you're having with this structuring of your notes.
So let me ask you, so let's say you're going to produce an article on your research on Darwinism, and you've got a few permanent notes that are quite similar but conflicting. You can imagine that if you had 1,000 permanent notes, it would get a little confusing as to which claims you want to trust, whereas which ones you in your previous research discovered maybe weren't true, but they still live on in your permanent node system. And so you might be doing some backtracking there. Or maybe Bo, you would want to jump in. Should we represent that as like claim has been kind of undermined?
But that presupposes that presupposes that you don't have a connection to the notes that you wrote, whether it's this or that. When you make these notes, you have a connection to it. You remember it. It's like you remember your favorite restaurant. And so by the time you get to the 1,001th note, it's like you have all that information with you. And so do you need to be able to, you're not juggling that because it's a part of you.
I see. Yeah, I mean, I find this process already happening in the sense that I'm going back when I realized something no longer accords with my current understanding. I can also just go back because the link is already there. I'm already talking to my previous notes. So I just went back in. I mean, this is a very simple example, but like that one note, I'd called it Problems of Darwinism. And then today I went back and I just put Problems of Darwinism ? And that's immediately clear to me that I no longer give that note so much credence. It sits in my permanent notes in a very different way. As soon as it has a question mark, I'm kind of like, Problems of Darwinism, yeah, whatever. So it just, I don't know. I feel like, and I agree, like you could maybe, once it gets really huge, you could have some different tags of kind of like, claim, counter argument, evidence, I mean, I have another thread going about primacy of feeling, primacy of affect. So I have like 3, like primacy of affect, debate, primacy of affect, debate, and then primacy of affect, evidence. And I can just, I mean, a lot of this stuff for me is coming so quickly because I already have a lot of it in my Rome graph, in the form of kind of very chaotic random notes, which are all over the place. But now that I have this system, I'm just like going through, and like most of my fleeting notes are already written. They're there. I just copy paste into the structure. Boom, boom, boom. The permanent note just emerges. Man, I'm having a blast. Anyway, I'll stop there.
The relationship that you're going to have with your notes too is something that can't be. It's like any other relationship, isn't it? I mean, there is that sense of growing with this communication partner, and if you know, I think it's as simple as when that complexity of do I want to have evidence supporting claims or whatever that looks like, it's just easy to do that in Rome. It's easy to just have like, okay, this is my evidence page for this argument, and then link it all in, and then drag over everything in.
I apologize. I missed part of the conversation due to some family transitions that were going on, but so I don't know what's already been said fully. But I plan on, like, on certain areas that is going to be a broad scale investigation, to actually building out over time as I think through the process and all of its different moving parts. And certain things will be questions that are not settled, and there'll be arguments actually to the contrary. And ultimately I'll structure those in a way that'll be tagged or even linked as essentially discarded arguments, and arguments that that I specifically don't believe for this reason, that reason, and this reason. And so it's kind of like a anti-permanent note. I mean, ultimately, I plan on building out a whole network of things that includes both what I wholeheartedly believe and that which I investigated and don't, for the various reasons, because we constantly encounter those things over and over and over again. So I have a permanent note that, you know, that kind of underlies our thinking relating to what we're no longer thinking.
You know what you're reminding me of is this is why you can't teach how to Zettelkasten, because everyone wants something different with their communication partner. You know, it's like one could be screenwriting, one could be, you know, ideas and philosophy, one could be, you know, academic papers. And it's just like, what you want to create with this thinking partner is what you want to create. And it's like, I think that's the beauty of it, but it's also like the thing that holds it back from being like, hey, this is how you teach it. You know, this is how you learn it. It's kind of like, there's certain basic steps that you can learn, but then what you do with it and how you actually build it is all on you. And I think that's, yeah, it's very interesting. I was just listening to it. I was like, yeah, but that's the beauty of it. It's like, what Curtis wants to build is what Curtis wants to build. It's not going to be the same as Brother Spirit. It's not going to be the same, you know? I think that's the power of this. Is that Carol?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm quite happy to share my screen and show how my Zettelkasten is as of now.
Yes.
If that will help anybody. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that showing now?
Perfect.
Yeah, okay. If anyone wants me to traverse around it or anything, I'm quite happy.
Can you open the link references for frictionless? I did post that on Slack, by the way, to find out what the CSS code for that is.
Thank you. Yeah, I can even just see them. Don't know if it's just my old eyes. Basically, most of these are the same notes that were in the joint graph, but I redid the thumbnail and redid the permanent note itself. So it actually spoke together in here.
And I love how, you know, I remember one of you were voicing the concerns about how am I going to connect, you know, knitting, or what was it? You know, bird. Yeah. And it's just like, but none of these are talking about that, really. Okay, maybe combine, but it's like, this is why I think someone asked once, is like, oh, what if you have a picture, right? And it's like, well, you can link the picture, but what if it was what that picture meant to you, and that's what you made into the permanent note? And it's kind of like, yes, it could be about this, but it's what it means to you. That is the.
It was when I started to actually have the conversation here, I realized that I could put things from totally different subjects and they would all connect. I couldn't work that out before this morning's meeting. It didn't click at all until we spoke.
Wow, how does that feel?
Wonderful.
connecting thoughts that you just, I mean, but isn't that how we learn? Like, okay, before school, before, you know, class bells and chairs all in a line, it's like you're 5 years old and you're running around and, you know, what is this? You touch this, you're like, ow, I'm not gonna do that again. That's like the end of a thread. But then you go to something else, you're like, oh, this is cool. I want to learn more about this. You know?
Anyway, I thought that might help. I don't know. I'll find out how to come out of it now. Over here somehow.
I'm still not convinced that people that say that they have a Zettelkasten are experiencing this. I think a lot of people that have a Zettelkasten are still have structured their permanent notes in a way that it's top down.
I can't work out. Oh, there it is.
I did.
Stop that, yeah.
You know, because I don't hear them talking about this experience that Carol's talking about, and that's what I was confused about, because it was like, I have a Zettelkasten, old habits die hard. Yes, exactly what it is. You know, I have a Zettelkasten, but it's not talking to you. Then what is it? It's a collection of notes, which is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. There's no one way to anywhere. I just loved what Carol is experiencing, which is like, it's me. How are you doing, Steven? Steven? No, you don't want to talk? I just haven't heard you talk yet. I haven't heard you talk yet.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yeah, what's up?
I'm just wondering if, well, I'm thinking about two different project Zettelkastens, but overlapping the fleeting notes, because the fleeting notes I think can double for multiple projects by changing the conversation. So would you recommend doing the template, do the fleeting notes, and then just do one set, and then do another set and use a reference block for the fleeting notes, and do another set of permanent notes to go in a different project?
What are the two different projects?
Okay, so one of them would be like I want to do a project on an invention idea that I have. So that's a project.
Got it.
Okay, and then another one has to do with faith life community, but there's some overlap between the two.
So why would you not?
So there's two different projects.
Why would you not have them in the same?
Well, the other option is, could you have the permanent note in multiple sections? So one would be like, if I named one faith life community and then one like this heartbeat invention, would you take the permanent note and just put it in both sections? So that I can clearly go in two sections?
Why wouldn't you just have it all in one project Zettelkasten?
That's what I mean. So it's one project. So I did one project and then had two different headings.
Because you said
because it's multiple headings.
You said it's overlapping, right? You said?
Well, it's two ways of doing it: two separate projects, or one project with sections in it, and then just putting the permanent note, a different permanent note for each section. See, the permanent note was slightly different. It's worded differently.
I'm a little confused, because I wouldn't know what the top level parent blocks are going to be until you create the permanent note, you know? And it's like a project Zettelkastens are primarily, like, if you read the book, like, and what Sonke was telling me, it's like what they're really meant for is just things that don't have a place to live yet and you want to explore it more, or things that have like a dedicated timeline. And you know, and everything else just lives in the Zettelkasten. And I've been super hyper focused in saying, okay, keep everything separated, you know, make sure everything has a source, but that was just to provide trust in the system. And if you can trust in your system, and you can trust in your dialogue partner, you can trust that what you're bringing up to a permanent node is okay and worthy of it, then be like Lumen. And he just added whatever, you know, sometimes he didn't take reference notes or literature notes. He just went fleeting note, permanent note, you know. But I think the idea is to connect all the threads that are very disparate, you know? So you could have, you know, the faith life over here, and you could have you know, the invention idea over here, but I wouldn't be surprised if for some reason you connected those two threads of conversation in your main Zettelcast and had insights that you wouldn't have had if you had them secluded or firewalled from that. And so if you're going to do a project Zettelcast, and it's really primarily meant for, like, he called them building blocks, but it's just things that you don't really know enough about yet, and you don't want to add it to the conversation. So you just kind of have it here.
Okay, so if I put it all in one Zettelkasten, which is what I was trying to do now, but it's like I need two different permanent note. The permanent notes are worded differently for the different sections, I guess.
So you have the same fleeting note you have one fleeting note, correct?
Yeah.
Why does that have to live in two different, why does it have to be
one fleeting? It's the permanent notes that are causing me the issues, because the future conversation is slightly different. It's like it's like using a metaphor. You can use the same metaphor for different applications, but how you use the metaphor could be slightly different depending on what you're using it for.
But it's in your own
words. So the
know,
permanent note is more like the introduction to the metaphor.
But it's in your own words, and you know what you're writing though. So wherever you put it, you're going to understand it. Like, I don't have to remember every like exact note, because if I read it and I go, I know what that means, because you've learned it.
Okay, I'll have to think. I'm trying to do it in my own graph and trying to work out the kinks and see how I can make it work. So maybe I'll work a little further on it, and then
let me just ask you this one more time. So basically you have a fleeting note, right? And you've made two different permanent notes. You did the abstractions on the fleeting notes?
Yeah, I did one whole set.
Can you show me? Can you share your screen and show me?
It's not, I'm not going to show it right now. It's really messy.
Okay. Well, I mean, I got to be able to see the work. That's why. Because I can.
Yeah. Well, maybe later I'll show it to you and see how that works.
Okay. I'm just confused on why you would have two different permanent notes from one set of fleeting notes if it's going to end up in the same Zettelkasten.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the parent block on the permanent page, on the permanent notes. So there was two different parent blocks that I want to nest them under.
Why don't you just put it on the best location and then just do relevant notes? It's exactly.
Yeah. Samantha, could you not do the actual permanent note and put both items in there? Perhaps put a dash in between them, so you've got both comments but in one permanent note.
That's what I was thinking while I was talking. I'm like, why can't I just put two permanent notes on the permanent note line?
Yeah.
And then on the permanent note page, put them into the block, just refer whichever one I use the hashtag, and then just use whichever permanent note I want to go into that parent block.
Why would you add complexity to such a simple thing though? Why would you make it more complicated? If you add it to a relevant note, it's the exact same thing, isn't it? It's not about the note. It's not about what the note
I'll try it.
It's not about, I'm going to reiterate, it's not about the note. It's not about what the note says. It's about how the note's connected with all the other notes.
Okay.
Yeah, this may be sacrilege to your system, Bo, but on some of the stuff that's more temporary, if I've sort of tried to do a page that contains multiple projects and then create a block that is almost like a folder for this very limited purpose of something temporary. And then just, you can call it fleeting note or time block or whatever you want to call it, project note. And then you can stack those blocks above it, and you have a block reference back to that same set of where you've worked out the idea that it attaches itself to then several projects. Does that make sense, Samantha? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'd love to see how you did that. I'm kind of a complex person, so I'm trying to keep it simple, but at the same time, make it work for the way my brain works.
And Roy, you would nest that underneath whatever permanent note it was. That way you can still fall back on where that information is, correct?
Well, I guess it depends on how durable you're really talking. For something that is really a time-limited project in my mind, I'm just doing a timestamp, dragging over the sort of the block that is sort of labeling
with all the information,
and then
two different
just
information.
This time block, and then I'm just labeling, giving that time block a strong. It's almost acting like a permanent note for the fleeting notes in a way, the summary of the time block note, so that then it pops up in the threads. It's not quite as elegant as your system for something that's durable and permanent, but it's really fast because you do something, you realize, oh crap, I've typed about things that really relate to 4 things. You just drag those block titles over and you're done. And then it's all in the block references.
Basically, that's the structure of a project Zettel. That's really Rome. Honestly, that's Rome. That's the power.
No, that's what I was talking about yesterday when I posted the thing about it's turtles all the way down. It's just when you start thinking about these as block stacks instead of the labels we're attaching to them, it gives you a little bit of flexibility to manipulate them for different purposes outside the Zettelkasten.
I have another crazy example. I mean, this is totally like non-canon Bohan Zettelkasten technique, but it just worked with what I was doing. I just happened because I was reading through this article, and so I was taking notes in hypothesis. So I'd highlight the section, annotate it, which is basically a fleeting node, right? It's the beginning of a fleeting node. But then I ended up having like, I don't know how many, 10, 20 highlights with annotations. And they were all like not earth-shattering, but important because it's, you know, it's a scientific article, and each one is an independent point, which is a refutation of the main argument, which I'm trying to refute. So it's all useful, but I didn't want to make a permanent note for each one. So basically, with the Readwise integration that I've got set up just since yesterday, Readwise pulls in everything from hypothesis. It now pulls it directly into, so each one becomes a reference node with a fleeting note if I've made an annotation. So I actually went in and created a stack where I actually deleted I didn't need the literature note. I just wanted fleeting note plus reference note and one permanent note at the top. So I have one permanent note and one reference node, well, one relevant nodes. So one relevant node, one permanent node, and then like 10 reference node, each with their fleeting node underneath. So I have everything in one place. I'm probably, I don't know if I'm ever going to look at it again, but it just made me realize like how flexible this system is and how quickly I can adapt it and kind of intuitively on the fly, just kind of go, okay, this is what I need now. I just need a whole stack of these things. I'm not going to make a note for each one, but I want to be able to see the whole argument in one flow. And boom, there it is. It's all there. And then and somehow, like with this progressive summarization thing, I actually feel like I managed to encapsulate in the permanent node like every essential point of the refutation of this argument. I was kind of astonished. I didn't think I could. And then it just happened because the structure just handed it to me, basically. Anyway, sorry, I don't want to go on too long, but that.
I also feel like that's, you know, you can do a triple axle because you can do a double axle.
Right.
And some people are still, you know what I mean? It's different. Okay, I understand this concept completely and I mastered it. And now it's like, you can do whatever you want. It's like, you can do the triple Lutz because you've already practiced the double axle. I'm doing figure skating terms, by the way. I don't know why I keep falling back on that, but it's that same idea. I'm not beholden to any of this. I just wanted to make sure that it was a certain practice.
I thought you were building trailers.
You know what I mean, though? It's like, I wanted to
you've given us the discipline.
Sure that everyone was tight, and then what you do with it, it's like, that's, I mean, is Rick still here? I told Rick basically, just because I know his history, that he doesn't have to do any of this. He can just go straight into project notes. And he doesn't have to have any references. He doesn't have to do any of that. And it's just like Roy was talking about, it's like, no, when you get the certain aspects of it, then it's like, you can do whatever you want. And I specifically told him, I recorded it, I didn't post it, but it's I specifically told him, I was like, listen, you understand the concept front and back. You can just do you don't even need reference notes. You just write hashtag, indentation underneath, whatever idea you have, and just add whatever notes you want to.
No, hi, bro. I think you asked me how I was doing.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, well, I'm still catching up. I don't have a lot of time, not enough. And yeah, I had an aha moment about the fleeting notes because I understood them not well enough. So I went back to that. And I try and find how to match that with the way my mind works. And it's quite complex because I've got a lot of things coming at the same time. I can't write as fast as my mind goes. And especially I've got, in the same time, several levels of thinking. So I would need, I've got the impression that I would need to write at the same time in a fleeting note in the literature and probably in the permanent note too. And I feel like I've got the relevant notes coming in the same time. So it's kind of hard for me to see how to keep the path. And well, but it's very interesting, and I feel like I'm beginning to get what you want us to get. I'm not sure I'm still yet there, but
you know who's phenomenal with Eshan. Eshan is phenomenal with fleeting notes. I was on a session with him yesterday, and he spent 30 minutes doing a fleeting note. And it was just, he went so in depth, but that's what he needed to do. You know?
Yeah, well, I did that for the text about teaching. Well, I happen to be a teacher for years, so that rang a lot of bells. And I had to stop at a certain point because, well, I went already deep at the first pass. Now I'm doing the second one, but there's quite a lot. And well, even in the first pass, I think I've got things that could go in further passes. So, but it's very interesting.
What was the aha
moment? About this one for the teacher?
Yeah.
There were several things. The fact that I've got as a teacher, I've got a different take on that. Probably also because it's not written in. It's quite old. It's a century old. So the way we see teaching is quite different. It's not in terms of knowledge, but more in terms of skills and abilities. And I relate that to transmission, to martial arts, and other things I practice. So I've got quite a sort of conflict with the text. So my fleeting notes are more like what I think of it, and then I have to go to literature notes saying what the author. So it's kind of a dialogue between the author and me. So yeah, and there's the sort of a battle in me between going deeper and another problem, which is perfectionism. It's good to want to go deep, but wanting always to do better and better than better and more, it's not that good at a certain point. And I need to find the sweet spot where I'm going too deep so that it prevents me from going further. So that's another aha moment in the same process for this one.
What I realized is that it's almost like finally the floodgates are open. You know, it's almost like, oh, it's been dammed up for so long, all this energy, all these thoughts and these ideas, and all of a sudden there's a way to express it. And so of course the first couple of like passes are going to be like this floodgate of opening, you know, but then it balances out. Then it gets to that point where it's like, okay, I get it, you know?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I see your work. Your work is phenomenal. So, I mean, you're getting that. So just keep going.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
community, man. This community is what it's about.
So great to see you all and interact with this community. That's the real thing. And thank you for the way you teach us. That's really valuable. I like the fact that it's not, well, more is even as a teacher. I often said to pupils I had that, we're not the kind of very typical pupils that wanted to be good pupils, but had a problem with school. And often I told them, no, it's not, you don't have a problem with school. It's just that you ask the right question. I know you don't want to buy anything just for free. You want something serious. And if you're not okay with something we say, you want to go further. You don't just want to accept things because someone tells you that. And so that your way of thinking is what we should all want, but many teachers don't respect that. And I feel like you've got this, which allows you to go much further than those that just, apply a system. You want something more. You want to dig, you want to learn, and you want to teach what really teaching is. And I highly value that.
Thank you. I received that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am exhausted. And Is this how we're ending? Is this how we're doing it? Bart, do you know what? I think you want to say something, Bart.
Well, I have a question, but it could be too long.
Yes, finally. What's up?
I'm trying to dissect some material, reading through, and I think I attacked a whole chapter, and I have a ton of fleeting notes in my literature notes, and I'm starting to see it would be better to be separate, separate permanent notes. There's a lot more in there. Would you chop it all up and make it all separate?
I mean, it's how I look at it is maybe the paragraph is talking about multiple things that are very similar, which it often is. Right. But my question is, was there a specific, I mean, it's different because it's not a highlighting like mechanic. It's more like that one point where it was like, this is something special. And maybe I didn't emphasize it enough this time around, but it was just like that moment when you capture something is literally like lightning in a bottle. And if you're not quick enough, it'll fleet away. And it was just, I think it was with, I forget who it was with Brian, maybe, but it was, I forget who it was with. One of the coaching sessions, it was like, once I had them slow down to just literally focusing on the word that's in front of them, I realized that like, that's what this fleeting note capture part is. It's literally just as you're reading, yeah, this thing is kind of like it. This thing is kind of like it. This thing is kind, and then boom, that's the thing.
I guess the thing is I'm learning, right? My fleeting notes are a lot of what I'm learning. If there's something I don't understand, I'm expanding on that as well. I'm trying to putting it into my own words.
Mm-hmm.
So if I understood the material more, I wouldn't have written so much, obviously.
Mm.
And the outcome is, a paper down the line. So it's like, how many permanent notes should I make out of this? Because all of it's important to me, but maybe not for a permanent Zettelkasten. And maybe it's what I'm learning should be separate.
Yeah, I think so. Do you know what I mean? And then having that clear delineation, because your outcome, what you want right now. You have a deadline of this. right? But how I approach the way that I think about a Zettelkasten, and it's a lifelong thing. So it's learning through our whole life. And so I think honestly, I truly like, I've been talking with Joel Chan, and I really think that like top down is better for when you're going through school or academic stuff, because it's, you know what you want. You don't need insight, really. You just need to get through to, so you can learn this. And I really think that top down is better for that. Now, say you're interested in other things that aren't necessarily, you know, a semester or of school. Maybe you're super into, you know, piano, right? And composers like Mozart, and you're reading the autobiography on Mozart, and then you're reading, and all of a sudden you get an aha, and you add that to your permanent Zettelkasten. And then you're reading through whatever book you're reading through now, doing your research, and you're like, oh, this is cool. This is a permanent note. And you add that to your permanent Zettelkasten. If you can connect Mozart with what you're reading now, that's the sort of like magic of all of this. And I don't know how to piece those two things together because it's not my conversation partner. You know, I feel like, you know, if you're going to put all this work into learning it, then you might as well slow it down. So, you know, maybe there's a clear delineation that you have to make between like, okay, this is just me learning top down with highlights and learning the topic. And here's something that I want to add as a permanent note that I really want to abstract upon. Or, you know, or maybe you're going to find a different way altogether. But I think there is a distinction in regards to, there's no time. And, you know, it's lifelong.
Makes a
Does
lot
that
of
help?
sense.
I mean, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it does. It does.
What's your
does.
plan of attack then? How are you gonna do this? How are you gonna organize it?
I'm just going to keep doing the same thing. And if there's a permanent note that comes up from it, I'll make one and I'll add it to the Zettelkasten. And if not, that's okay. I'm still connecting things and learning as I go. So,
and they can all live in Rome too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
See you, Chris. No, I like the flexibility of that. And I think at the end of the day, Bart, I think it's whatever you do is the right way to do it.
Zotero site key, you know, can live on the page for the source.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, you know, if it doesn't go to a Zettelkasten, it can just live there.
Let me ask you this: what has been your experience just juggling the two different ways of working? Like Zettelkasten is definitely bottom up, but then obviously you're in the middle of like top down way of working. What's the how
it's,
can you
it's
how
complementing? It's
Is it-
complementing each other, I think, because the top down is my outline, but the bottom up is the sort of discovery where I want to go with it. You know, answering the questions I have is bottom up. Once I have an answer, I can stick that into the outline and then it becomes top down.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, that's where I'm at so far.
Yeah. We are on the frontier of something, I'll tell you that. And yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
Sure beats the blank page, I tell you that.
What is that? It sure beats the blank page. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. I think it is complementary. It makes it deeper. Okay.
Thank you.
Chris Oakley was like, I could have watched 2 Iron Man movies by now. Listen, I love you guys. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna set up coaching sessions for the calendar tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. PST, and Rome Reading Room tomorrow as well. And yeah, let's just finish this week out strong. And then I think I was gonna do goal setting, but I might just wait till maybe Sunday to do goal setting workshop, just so we can like, I feel like we're all there already though. And then I need to figure out what we're gonna do with post RBC in order to keep everyone connected. I do like the circle idea, but we'll see what happens. Okay, I'm tired. Okay.
We can always bump in an extra session if it's absolutely necessary too.
Say that again?
We could always like toss in just one extra session if it ends up being needful.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, I kind of like the idea of like ongoing too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ongoing meetups like this. So we can talk where we're at and track our progress. As a group though, you know?
Yeah. Appreciate everything you're doing, Bo.
Thank you, Curtis. Okay, I'm getting out of here, dude. I am exhausted.
All right, see you guys.
All right, I love you guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Much.
Bye.
Bye.
I swear I clicked leave. Bye.
Hey, Bo, all done?
What's up?
It's like 10:45, right? So that's all.
Oh my goodness, dude. Okay, I'm exhausted. I'm gonna stop recording.